Hyun-sung's story takes a sharp turn when he falls from the top of his school. Just as he is about to graduate, fate decides to throw him off, literally. As he plummets, disbelief grips him. After everything he has endured, is this really how it ends? As he falls, we see 4 bullies standing on top of the building. 3 months later, he lies in a vegetative state at a medical university center. The doctors tell his grandmother there is almost no chance of him waking up, but Granny refuses to give up. Even though Hyun-sung can't move, he can still feel her presence, her touch, her voice, her unwavering love. She has been his pillar ever since he lost his parents, and now she clings to hope, praying for just one sign that he is still in there somewhere. Hyun-sung tries to respond deep in his subconscious, but it's like screaming into the void. Meanwhile, his brother struggles to keep afloat. The same bullies who tormented Hyun-sung have turned their attention to him. As if that's not enough, Granny picks up extra work at a restaurant to pay for hospital bills, only to injure herself in the process. The weight of it all crushes Hyun-sung's brother until, in a moment of exhaustion, he whispers the unthinkable. Maybe it would be better if Hyun-sung never wakes up. Trapped in his unmoving body, Hyun-sung refuses to believe this is the end. This must be a dream. If he can just endure it a little longer, maybe, just maybe, he will wake up. 3 years pass. Hyun-sung listens helplessly as nurses discuss his grandmother collapsing. A fire ignites within him. He seethes with rage at the names that haunt him. The 2 teachers who covered for them, they're on his list too. If he ever gets another chance, he swears he will destroy them. And so he devises the perfect revenge plan, but his body remains lifeless. Time marches on. 10 years slip away, and he is still trapped. His perfect plan rots away inside his mind as he silently begs for an end to this suffering. Then something impossible happens. Hyun-sung blinks. He is no longer in a hospital bed. He is in a classroom. His classroom. His body jolts upright. His mind scrambles to make sense of it. Another dream? He pinches himself. Pain. He grabs a pen and stabs his thigh. Sharp pain. His breath catches. This is real. And then he hears it, the sound of Park Min-chul kicking a student at the back of the class. The exact moment where everything began. His memories crash over him like a tidal wave. But this time, something is different. This time, he doesn't hesitate. He walks up to Park Min-chul, heart pounding but eyes steady. The bully smirks, unbothered, until Hyun-sung's fist collides with his face. The punch carries 10 years of agony, fury, and the undeniable satisfaction of finally fighting back. Hyun-sung is back in his freshman year, back to the moment he has dreamed of for so long. And this time, he is rewriting everything. Hyun-sung's life takes a sharp turn on a day that starts like any other, with Park Min-chul half listening to class, more interested in tormenting his so-called friends than actually learning. As the resident bully, he has been using Lee Jungmin as his personal game shuttle in Legend Online, forcing him to buy items and run errands. Jungmin, once the top student, sees his grades plummet under the pressure. His wallet isn't faring any better. Eventually, the stress builds to a breaking point. That day, Hyun-sung witnesses real violence for the first time. Jungmin getting beaten down with no one stepping in to help. At first, he hesitates. Staying out of trouble seems like the easier path. But then he remembers how Jungmin had always been kind to him, offering help with studies. Letting this slide doesn't sit right with him. A friend warns him not to interfere. Min-chul isn't someone to mess with. Hyun-sung, however, doesn't see the big deal. He's good at sports, holds his own in the social hierarchy, and Min-chul's name doesn't exactly send shivers down his spine. So he steps in. The fight ends quickly when the teacher arrives, but Min-chul and his gang don't let it slide. From that day on, Hyun-sung becomes their new target. He's dragged off daily, beaten relentlessly, and forced to run errands for their online game addiction. There's no time to recover, no escape, not even after school, where sleepless nights become routine. Life turns into a waking nightmare. Fast forward to the present, and the tables turn. Hard. Hyun-sung grabs Min-chul by the hair and smashes his face against the table. Blood spills. Then come the punches, each one a memory engraved in Hyun-sung's mind from the time he spent in a coma. He knows Min-chul fights purely on brute strength and isn't used to being hit. If he overwhelms him from the start, Min-chul won't even get a chance to retaliate. Hyun-sung has played this scenario out in his head for 10 long years, and now it unfolds exactly as he imagined. He keeps swinging until Min-chul's gang finally intervenes. Jung Minho, watching in disbelief, wonders if Hyun-sung has completely lost it. He must know they'll gang up on him, yet he keeps going like he wants this fight. Kang Chung-suk, the strongest among them, steps forward to put Hyun-sung in his place. But before things escalate further, someone shouts about the teacher approaching and they all back off. saving their revenge for later. During class, Minchul sits with his head down, burning with humiliation. Rage simmers beneath the surface. He had always tolerated Hyunsung before. Sure, the guy was the class president and used to step in sometimes, but he never overstepped. Now that he has, there's no way Minchul is letting this slide. Meanwhile, Minho and the others plot in the next classroom, waiting for the bell to ring. Hyunsung needs to be made an example of, so that no one else gets the wrong idea about standing up to them. The moment class ends, Minchul moves in, ready to settle things, but Hyunsung doesn't back down. In fact, he keeps going, continuing his assault like he wants them all to come at him. Minchul, already struggling to read Hyunsung's next move, realizes something terrifying. Hyunsung isn't avoiding this fight, he's inviting it. As soon as class ends, Minho and his group rush to Hyunsung's classroom, only to find him mercilessly beating Minchul, who is barely able to defend himself. The sight of Minchul nearly reduced to a pulp prompts Chang-suk, the strongest among them, to charge at Hyunsung without hesitation. But Hyunsung knows the difference in strength. Taking down Minchul is easy, but Chang-suk is a real threat. There is no reason to fight fair. Without wasting a second, he grabs a padlock and smashes it against Chang-suk's head. Any hesitation has no place in his pursuit of revenge. Blow after blow, the padlock crashes down, sending Chang-suk to the floor, completely subdued. Not allowing any time for recovery, Hyunsung turns his attention to Yongtaek. He throws his full weight into him, slamming him onto the hallway floor. A relentless flurry of punches follows, each one landing with brutal precision. Yongtaek has no chance to react, no opportunity to fight back. Finishing him off before dealing with Minho is the only way to win in a fight where he is outnumbered. Even as Minho attempts to strike from behind, Hyunsung remains focused, determined to end this now. The moment Yongtaek stops struggling, his face already deformed beyond recognition, exhaustion starts creeping into Hyunsung's body. Despite all the preparation, the tension from the fight settles into his muscles. But there is no time to rest. His gaze shifts to Minho, who stands frozen in fear. The realization is clear. If even Chang-suk has fallen, there is no chance of beating Hyunsung. Just as Hyunsung raises his fist to land another punch, a teacher's voice cuts through the air, stopping him in his tracks. The momentary distraction is enough, and Minho exhales in silent relief, knowing he has barely escaped a beating. Now standing before the teacher, Hyunsung listens as the blame for everything is placed entirely on him. There is no effort to understand the situation, no attempt to question what led to the fight. The conclusion is immediate. Hyunsung is the problem. Without reacting to the accusations, he calmly reminds the teacher that violence in the school is nothing new, and that the best course of action would be to bury the case rather than escalate it. After all, avoiding trouble has always been the teacher's specialty, but the response comes swift and harsh, a sharp slap across his face. The hit is expected. This isn't new. The real enemy has never just been the bullies. It has always been the cowardice of the adults who turn a blind eye. Hyunsung, however, does not back down. If the teacher wants to act superior, then he will remind him of the truth. Kim Young-chul's hands are far from clean. Bribes from parents, especially Minho's, are only the beginning. His affair with the English teacher is another secret waiting to be exposed. The shift in power is instant. The teacher's eyes flicker with panic, and in that moment, Hyunsung knows he is the one in control now. After enduring relentless bullying, Hyunsung finally comes to a decision. Though he knows it is far from an ideal solution, he seeks out a teacher, believing that the backing of an adult is necessary. Back then, he had met with Young-chul and reported Minchul's gang, hoping for intervention. But Young-chul had merely entertained Minchul's fabricated story, one where he and Hyunsung were supposedly friends, before settling the matter with a dismissal. That misguided step had only worsened Hyunsung's situation, leading to even harsher beatings from Minchul's gang. Young-chul had seen it happen and simply turned a blind eye. It isn't long before Hyunsung uncovers the truth. Young-chul has long accepted bribes from parents, including Minho's. From the beginning, there had never been any real intention of solving the problem. Realizing that no one would fight for him, Hyunsung takes matters into his own hands. Even knowing he stands no chance, he swings his fists in defiance, desperate to break free from his torment. The resulting conflict is violent, but it changes nothing. When the school violence committee intervenes, Minchul's gang emerges unscathed, protected by their parents' influence. Meanwhile, Hyunsung alone takes the fall. His grandmother arrives, but nothing she says can change the outcome. The system ensures that Minchul's gang continues their school life undisturbed, while Hyunsung is left to bear the punishment alone. Through this, Hyunsung comes to a harsh realization. Revenge cannot be achieved through brute strength alone. If he truly wants justice, he must dismantle the power protecting his enemies. Adult intervention must be accounted for, manipulated, and controlled. Only then can he claim his revenge in the truest sense. His first move is to bring Young-chul under his control. He confronts the teacher, revealing knowledge of his secrets, the bribes from Minho's parents, The affair with the English teacher, the frequent visits to Motel M. He hints at knowing even more. This leverage isn't a recent discovery. When Hyun-sung entered his third year, Jung-chul's private affairs had been exposed in a spectacular downfall. His wife had stormed into the school, slapped him in front of everyone, and slammed divorce papers onto his desk. All the property he thought he owned had legally belonged to her. From that moment, it had been clear. Jung-chul fears nothing more than the exposure of his hidden sins. Sure enough, Jung-chul falters, his arrogance stripped away. Desperation creeps into his voice as he asks what must be done. Hyun-sung's demand is simple. Jung-chul must continue his role as an idle onlooker, just as he has always been. The only difference is that, from now on, he will do so under Hyun-sung's command. He is to ensure that the recent fight remains buried, no matter what methods are required. And if he follows instructions until Hyun-sung's graduation, his secrets will remain safe. There is no room for negotiation. With no other option, Jung-chul submits. This is only the first card Hyun-sung has prepared. There is still more to be done. Meanwhile, Minho grows restless. He is convinced that Jung-chul will handle Hyun-sung, forcing him to drop out at the very least. But despite his outward confidence, fear grips him. He cannot afford to let others see it. His position as a predator in the school depends on maintaining dominance. Just as relief begins to settle in, Hyun-sung appears before him. Without pretense or warning, Hyun-sung declares that they should finish what they started. The next moment, his fists strike with precision, sending Minho reeling. The sheer force leaves Minho stunned, unable to process what is happening. Desperation takes hold. He turns his gaze toward Jung-chul, expecting intervention, expecting protection. After all, Jung-chul has always accepted bribes from his parents. Surely he will step in. But to Minho's disbelief, Jung-chul does nothing. His silent gaze offers no support, no acknowledgement of Minho's predicament. Hyun-sung leans in, delivering the final blow, not with his fists, but with his words. Minho must abandon any hope of rescue because from this moment forward, there is no one in this school who will ever come to his aid. Jung-chul sits in his office, drenched in fear. Hyun-sung's little incident has gone way beyond his ability to control, landing 3 students in the hospital. The school obviously wants to keep things quiet, but if he doesn't punish Hyun-sung, the parents will raise hell, especially Minho's. Sensitive, wealthy, and well-connected in Daesan, Minho's family has pumped a generous amount of money into the school. And well, Jung-chul has been more than happy to accept those donations. Now, that money feels less like a gift and more like a noose tightening around his neck. His best bet is damage control, keeping Minho out of the equation. Since Hyun-sung hasn't touched him yet, convincing Minho's parents to stay out of it might just work. All he has to do is make sure Hyun-sung leaves Minho alone. Simple, right? Wrong. Because the moment Jung-chul steps outside, he is met with the wonderful sight of Minho getting absolutely wrecked by Hyun-sung. That's when he knows he's screwed. As Minho crumples to the ground, Jung-chul calmly decides that dealing with Minho's parents is a future problem. Right now, his bigger concern is making sure his secret relationship with the English teacher doesn't get exposed. Priorities. Meanwhile, Hyun-sung, feeling quite satisfied after beating Minho to a pulp, strolls back to his seat. He knows that if he had just left Minho alone, there might have been a way to cover up the whole mess. But if he was the kind of guy who could pick his battles, he wouldn't have decked Min-chul in the face the moment he walked in. Once upon a time, he might have chosen peace. But after surviving the nightmare of being trapped in his own body, revenge is the only thing keeping him going. And so far, it's going exactly the way he wants. Of course, he's not dumb. He knows the uproar is coming, 3 students already carted off, with Minho likely on his way next. The principal, who dreams of turning this school into a prestigious institution, will do everything he can to make an example out of him. But Hyun-sung has no plans of letting anyone dictate his fate. If he wasn't prepared to deal with this school, he wouldn't have started his revenge in the first place. Meanwhile, Principal Oh Dae-won is deep in a meeting with the teachers, discussing the catastrophe that is Hyun-sung. As expected, Lee Min-young, the English teacher, is quick to agree with the principal's suggestion of handling the problem, and even boldly proposes expulsion. Jung-chul, sitting next to her, nudges her immediately. He doesn't say a word, but the message is clear. If they push too hard, their little private affair might come to light. And at that point, Hyun-sung would be the least of their problems. Jung-chul steps forward, attempting to spin the situation in Hyun-sung's favor. Yes, Hyun-sung was in the wrong, but to be real, Min-chul's gang has been tormenting students for ages. He had even been planning to catch them in the act and hand out proper punishments. Clearly, Hyun-sung just couldn't endure the bullying any longer, which led to his outburst. Young-chul argues that punishing him wouldn't be fair. Principal Oh Dae-won, however, has different priorities. If he wants to turn this school into a prestigious institution, he needs to keep Minho's parents happy. And there is no universe where they let this slide. He makes his decision. A review committee will be convened in 1 week to determine Hyun-sung's punishment. Until then, Hyun-sung is suspended and must reflect on his actions. Oh, and he better show up with his parents when the time comes. The moment Hyun-sung steps out of the meeting room, Young-chul rushes after him, panting as he tries to explain. He really did his best to protect him. He swears. It's just that Hyun-sung went ahead and beat Minho to a pulp, making things spiral out of his control. Hyun-sung, of course, isn't impressed. He's always known Young-chul to be trash, but at least he's trash with some self-awareness. He acknowledges that Min-chul's gang has been running wild and yet never did anything about it. Hyun-sung lays it out plain and simple. Until the day he graduates, Young-chul better make sure things always work in his favor, by any means necessary. If Young-chul ever fails to show that level of commitment, Hyun-sung will personally ensure that Min-young's life crumbles to pieces. Young-chul, sweating bullets, quickly gets the message. Despite wanting to deal with Young-chul right then and there, Hyun-sung holds back. He knows better than to waste a perfectly good pawn out of sheer anger. For now, he needs Young-chul to lay the groundwork at school. With that, he heads back to class, his mind already fixated on what's to come. 1 week, that's all the time he has. Or rather, all the time he has been waiting and planning for the past decade. And once it passes, the situation will unfold in a way that Principal Oh Dae-won never saw coming. Hyun-sung walks home, passing through narrow streets until he reaches his shabby villa, number 00. It's all he and his grandmother own, a house worth barely 50 million won. As he steps inside, he recalls that his grandmother should be at work around this time, as she always is. The house is empty, but Hyun-sung isn't thinking about resting. His mind is completely occupied with revenge. More than that, he wants to create a place where his grandmother and his younger brother, Kyunjin, can live in peace, away from all the filth of the world. With only a week left before the review committee meeting, he begins drafting his plans. Within 2 years, he intends to consume the surrounding areas, lay down a foundation, and clean up the rotten base of the people who control things from the shadows. However, for this to happen, he must fulfill 3 conditions. First, he needs manpower. There's no way he can take on school violence perpetrators alone without being pushed back. Training himself to that level isn't an option, so the best approach is to find and win over people with the necessary strength. If he succeeds, it will be a major advantage in the battles ahead. Second, he needs allies who share his purpose. Even if he crafts the perfect plan, he's just a high school freshman. Without the power to execute his ideas, everything remains theoretical. Lastly, he needs a strong background. No matter how well prepared he is, if he lacks a solid foundation to put his plans into action, they will crumble before they even begin. Nothing can stand in his way once all 3 conditions are met. At the same time, inside a police station, a man is shouting at the officers, demanding that they recognize his name and the family he belongs to. Go Chang-boom, the eldest son of Myeonjin Construction, is causing a scene. The officers attempt to restrain him, and after a brief struggle, he finally calms down and takes a seat. His biggest concern at the moment is the potential consequences of this incident. If things escalate any further, his opponents will undoubtedly take advantage of the situation. The timing of the event makes it all the more troubling. His father has recently announced the official start of the succession race between him and his younger brother, Go Chang-seok. Unlike Chang Boem, who only has a high school diploma, Chang-seok has graduated from a prestigious university and has secured a powerful position through his marriage to a well-known woman in Daesan 3 years earlier. This has allowed him to monopolize influence within the company, leaving Chang Boem in a precarious position. Any misstep now will only weaken his standing further. As he tries to explain to the officer that he was attacked first, his words carry little weight. There is no CCTV footage and no concrete evidence to support his claim, making it difficult for the officers to believe him. The situation seems to be turning against him. A sudden shift occurs when a teenager steps forward, offering to testify on his behalf. Hyun-sung presents a recording of the altercation, which clearly shows that Chang Boem was struck first. With undeniable proof now in front of them, the officers conclude the investigation and apologize for the misunderstanding. Once outside the precinct, Chang Boem expresses his gratitude to Hyun-sung and hands him some money as a token of appreciation. Unlike most who would hesitate or act modestly, Hyun-sung accepts it without a second thought. The ease with which he takes it makes an impression, suggesting there is something unusual about him. Rather than leaving it at that, Hyun-sung brings up the possibility that the incident was not a coincidence. He reveals that he is fully aware of Changbom's true position and the ongoing power struggle between him and his younger brother. More importantly, he claims to have evidence that will verify his suspicions. Before offering further details, Hyun-sung asks for an hour of his time, assuring him that there is nothing to worry about. Hyun-sung places the original copy of the black box video on the table, stating that the version shown to the police was incomplete. The first half, which he withheld, reveals the true nature of the incident. Solid proof that it was indeed a coincidence rather than an orchestrated setup. With a calm and calculated tone, he recounts the events leading up to the altercation. 30 minutes before the fight broke out, 3 men had gathered in front of the convenience store. At first glance, they appeared to be ordinary customers, but their behavior told a different story. They remained in the same spot, unmoving, their presence more akin to waiting rather than shopping. The moment Changboem arrived, the men confronted him aggressively, provoking a fight as if they were deliberately inviting him to strike first. He had initially tried to maintain his composure, but as the provocation escalated, he eventually lashed out. Hyun-sung then directs Changboem's attention to the pattern of misfortunes that have plagued him since the start of the successor race. If Changboem had already suspected that someone was working against him, then the answer should be obvious. Chang-seok had been pulling the strings to undermine him. Despite the evidence, Changboem hesitates to fully accept the implication. The idea that his own younger brother, whom he had always viewed as someone who grew up properly, would resort to such underhanded tactics feels unfathomable, yet the doubt lingers. He questions why Hyun-sung is revealing all of this. Hyun-sung's motivations are far from simple. He remembers the future, Myeonjin Construction eventually becoming a massive conglomerate, but in the process, both sons disappear from the picture. The root of that downfall had been Chang-seok. Not long after this very period, Dasan had been shaken by an incident that even someone like Hyun-sung, who was drowning in school violence, had heard about. Chang-seok, driven by his ambition, had committed one ruthless act after another, only for his schemes to be uncovered by Changboem. The resulting confrontation had been disastrous. Enraged, Changboem had lashed out, delivering a blow that left his younger brother permanently disabled. Their father, furious beyond reason, deemed both sons unworthy and refused to hand over the company to either of them. The ensuing power struggle had turned into a massive scandal, one that Hyun-sung still remembers vividly, but the past holds no importance beyond its usefulness. Whether the future turns out better or worse because of his actions is irrelevant. His priority is, and always will be, revenge. If aligning himself with Changboem serves his goals, then that is the only path worth taking. With a composed yet unwavering resolve, he offers Changboem a proposition: his help in seizing control of Myeonjin Construction, ensuring that Chang-seok is eliminated from the picture entirely. Changboem, skeptical of a mere high schooler's claims, refuses to take him seriously at first. Hyun-sung remains undeterred. The people surrounding Changboem now are nothing more than opportunists, feeding him sweet lies while secretly serving as Chang-seok's informants. If a high schooler like him can already see through Chang-seok's schemes, then it should be obvious. Changboem is walking straight into his brother's trap, guided by people he mistakenly trusts. Instead of asking for blind faith, Hyun-sung proposes something different. He does not demand trust, only a chance to prove himself. If Changboem gives him that opportunity, then he will not regret it. Later, Changboem finds himself alone, deep in thought, weighing his options. Meanwhile, Hyun-sung stands firm in his reasoning. Changboem is far from righteous, moderately corrupt, ambitious, and willing to crush his own brother for power. And that makes him the perfect tool. Changboem recalls his father's words, a lesson ingrained in him since childhood, that true leadership does not come from personal skill alone, but from the ability to surround oneself with the right people. Age, gender, or circumstance are irrelevant. What matters is recognizing talent and keeping it close. With this in mind, he sets aside his skepticism and tells Hyun-sung to lay out his plan in full. He will listen, and only then will he decide whether to act. Meanwhile, across the city, Chang-seok's phone rings with unwelcome news. His carefully orchestrated plan has failed. Frustration surges through him as he processes the setback, but before he can fully react, another call comes through, this time with an even more alarming development. Something major has happened, and the tone of the caller suggests that this is not just another minor complication. Back in the conversation with Changboem, Hyun-sung calmly breaks down the reality of the successor race. On paper, in terms of education, strategic thinking, and overall capability, Chang-seok is the obvious choice. He has the qualifications, the refinement, and the skill set to lead Myeonjin Construction. In contrast, Changboem's only real advantage is his status as the eldest son. a position that holds weight, but one that is meaningless without the right leverage. However, there is still an opening, a flaw in Go Myungjin's logic that can be exploited. Myungjin, despite being a seasoned businessman, holds on to the naive belief that the eldest son will inherently desire the position of successor. This outdated notion is what keeps the competition alive, despite the overwhelming difference in ability between the two brothers. Hyun-sung presents a simple yet ruthless idea. Rather than trying to surpass Chang-seok, what if Chang-seok is forced down to the same level? If he is stripped of his advantages, made to stand on equal footing with Chang-boim, the real battle will begin. And when everything else is equal, the weight of being the eldest son will become an irrefutable class difference, one that Chang-seok can never overturn. Hyun-sung lays it out plain and simple. Winning the succession war requires three things: background, reputation, and ability. Unfortunately for Chang-boim, he's already lost the first one. While Chang-seok has been busy securing alliances with the prestigious families of Daesan through strategic marriages, Chang-boim has spent his time rubbing elbows with the most useless people in the red light district. Reputation isn't looking much better either. And as for ability, let's just say Chang-seok's track record in business has already set him apart. He doesn't even need to be exceptional. Whatever he does will still look better than whatever Chang-boim tries. Hyun-sung knows they need to start at the foundation. If Chang-boim is going to have a chance, they need to strip Chang-seok of his strongest advantage, his wife. She is the glue holding together his powerful background, and if she disappears from the equation, then Chang-seok will be standing on equal footing with them. Well, at least in that aspect. Before any plans can unfold, drama erupts in their father's office. Chang-seok apologizes, and their father reveals he has already reached out to his in-laws to keep things from escalating to divorce. Turns out, Chang-seok has been having a private affair. Meanwhile, Go Myungjin has his own concerns, namely, why Chang-boim has been hanging around police stations again. Myungjin expects him to pull his usual routine of claiming innocence, but this time, the situation is different. Chang-boim had considered exposing Chang-seok's flaws to their father, but Hyun-sung had warned him against it. Myungjin isn't blind. He has long known about the dirty deeds of both his sons. But as long as they can contribute to the company's growth, he's willing to overlook certain indiscretions. In other words, pointing fingers won't do Chang-boim any good. What he needs to do is prove that he has changed, that he can act like someone fit for the chairman's seat. Following Hyun-sung's plan, Chang-boim swallows his pride and apologizes to his father, admitting that he, as the eldest son, should have been more responsible. He promises to be mindful of his position from now on. To his shock, his strict father actually praises him, saying he's proud. That moment changes everything for Chang-boim. If this is what it takes to gain his father's approval, then he needs to keep it up. Later, he meets up with Hyun-sung to thank him, recognizing that his guidance is already paying off. Hyun-sung reminds him that this is only the beginning. There are still two more hurdles: reputation and ability. And while he has a plan, it isn't something they can pull off just yet. For now, Chang-boim needs to start from the bottom and learn how the company works. Hyun-sung will reveal the plan when the time is right. And just in case Chang-boim forgot, this partnership isn't charity. They both have something to gain from each other. Chang-boim has already promised to grant Hyun-sung's wish, and now Hyun-sung finally tells him what he wants. Meanwhile, Minho's mother is on the warpath. Furious at Young-chul, she slaps him and demands that he expel Hyun-sung. Young-chul, caught between a rock and a hard place, tries to get Hyun-sung to admit his mistakes. But Hyun-sung refuses, fully aware that Minho's mother is pressuring Young-chul. Instead, he gives Young-chul an ultimatum: either expose the hush money scandal or confess to cheating on his wife. Checkmate. By the time the committee meeting rolls around, Young-chul is drowning in misery, unsure of his next move. But then, he notices something and seizes the moment. Just as the principal begins the review meeting and calls on him to explain, Young-chul unexpectedly throws his support behind Hyun-sung. He claims that Minho is actually one of the school's bullies, making this whole case an absolute joke. The real attacker is being painted as the victim, and Young-chul isn't about to let that stand. Young-chul quickly realizes that Hyun-sung's legal guardian is none other than the eldest son of Myungjin Construction. Sensing an opportunity, and knowing a losing battle when he sees one, he switches gears immediately, throwing his full support behind Hyun-sung. He masterfully spins the entire situation, pinning the blame on Minho and his gang while narrating the events in a way that makes Hyun-sung seem like a tragic hero. Sure, maybe Hyun-sung went a little overboard, but Young-chul argues that if the school only punishes him, they'd be nothing more than adults who turn a blind eye to the real issue: bullying. The principal, caught off guard by this unexpected attack on his moral compass, scrambles to regain control. He insists that the real focus should be on the fact that, for the first time in the school's history, 4 students have been hospitalized due to a violent incident. No matter the reason, he argues, violence is unacceptable and punishment is necessary. Minho is then called to testify, and he plays his part well. According to him, Hyun-sung just up and decided to beat Min-chul to a pulp out of nowhere, and when he and the others tried to step in, they got caught in the crossfire. His mother, never one to miss an opportunity, jumps in as well, rallying the other parents behind her. The consensus? Hyun-sung must be punished. Meanwhile, over in the hospital ward, Min-chul and his gang are busy plotting their next move. They're confident Minho's mother is already tearing into Hyun-sung at school. Min-chul, still nursing his injuries but not his ego, swears that if Hyun-sung isn't expelled, he'll make his life miserable until he drops out. And if Hyun-sung does get expelled, well, then Min-chul will just make sure to haunt him outside of school, demanding compensation. Seems like someone has a bit too much free time. Just when things seem to be swinging in Minho's favor, Chang Boeum steps in. He lays it all out. Min-chul and his gang have been terrorizing the school for ages, harassing and stealing from students, and Hyun-sung was simply defending himself. That's why they ended up in the hospital. Minho's mother, clearly not used to being challenged, demands to know who exactly Chang Boeum is. Turns out, Hyun-sung had already approached Chang Boeum before all this chaos, asking him to be his backer. He had a plan, one that involved causing enough problems at school to turn into legal issues, all while relying on Chang Boeum to clean up the mess. With Chang Boeum backing him, Hyun-sung was confident that no one in Daesan would dare touch him. And in return, if Chang Boeum could prove himself useful, Hyun-sung promised to make him the chairman of Myungjin Construction, or maybe even something better. Flash forward to the present and Chang Boeum finally drops the bombshell. He isn't just Hyun-sung's legal guardian, he's also the eldest son of Myungjin Construction. Chang Boeum makes it clear that Hyun-sung is like a brother to him and not the type to stir up trouble. So, when he hears about Hyun-sung being dragged into a deliberation committee meeting, he rushes over, hoping to keep him out of unnecessary trouble. He even planned to sponsor the school under Myungjin Construction's name, but now, seeing how rotten and mismanaged it is, he's seriously reconsidering. He points out the school's hypocrisy, ignoring Hyun-sung's suffering when he was bullied, but punishing him the moment he stands up for himself. Clearly, they've been turning a blind eye, probably thanks to some generous donations from the bully's parents. Deciding to flex his influence, Chang Boeum threatens to ensure that none of those siding with the bullies will ever step foot in Daesan again. The principal, now sweating bullets, reevaluates the situation. He never expected Hyun-sung to have the backing of Myungjin Construction's first son. If he plays this right, he might even secure Chang Boeum's sponsorship and turn the high school into the best in the country. Quick to shift blame, he suddenly claims that young Minho is actually the ringleader of the bullies who have been tormenting students since the start of the school year. He then allows Hyun-sung to share his side of the story, something that would have never happened if he had no one backing him up. If only someone had listened to him like this in his previous life. Maybe things wouldn't have ended in such a horrible way back then. Hyun-sung calmly lays everything out. He had reported Min-chul's gang to the teachers multiple times, but they either brushed him off or pretended they would look into it. When they did act, it was nothing more than a light scolding, which only made the bullies more confident in their cruelty. He doesn't deny that he hit Minho and sent the other three to the hospital, but he makes it clear it wasn't excessive. They just assumed he was powerless and paid the price for their mistake. He then calls out the school committee, pointing out that a gang has been committing these atrocities for far too long. If they want to punish him, they better punish the real culprits first. Otherwise, he'll make sure the entire world knows the truth about this school. If they want to silence him, they'll have to deliver proper justice. Meanwhile, Minho's mother is panicking. She refuses to back down and calls her husband, ranting about how the principal and Young-chul are siding with Hyun-sung just because he has Chang Boeum behind him. But the moment her husband hears Myungjin Construction is involved, he shuts her down instantly. If she doesn't want their entire family destroyed, she better accept whatever punishment Minho gets without a fight. Later, Hyun-sung reflects on what happened. In the end, he is sentenced to 100 hours of volunteer work, a small price to pay compared to the heinous school violence he was accused of. Meanwhile, Min-chul's gang is expelled. Minho, unable to accept the outcome, tries to lash out at Hyun-sung, but his mother stops him before he can embarrass himself further. Then comes the real humiliation. Hyun-sung demands Minho to kneel and beg for forgiveness. Minho refuses at first, but when even his mother orders him to do it, he has no choice. As Minho kneels, Hyun-sung can't help but think back to his past life, when it was his grandmother who had to kneel instead. But this time, the tables have turned. Still, it doesn't bring him as much satisfaction as he thought it would. He tells Minho he should start praying because his future will be nothing but misery from now on. With the deliberation committee over, Hyun-sung takes one step closer to uncovering the mastermind behind the gang that tried to push him to his death. Hyun-sung later meets with Min-chul, who calls him out, pretending to apologize and taking all the blame for the bullying and the attempted attack on him. But Hyun-sung sees right through it. Min-chul isn't here because he's suddenly remorseful. He just wants to avoid expulsion, unlike Minho, whose parents made sure his fate was sealed. Desperate, Min-chul pleads, swearing he'll do anything if it means getting back into school. Hyun-sung knows the reality must have hit hard. These guys act like untouchable predators, but at the end of the day, they're just 17-year-olds who never thought their actions would ruin their lives. Expulsion for school violence is basically a death sentence for any future prospects. Then, Min-chul lets something interesting slip. Someone ordered them to target Hyun-sung. Hyun-sung immediately claims he already knows who it is. In his previous life, it took him years to figure it out, only after a bullied student committed suicide. The suicide note left behind exposed the truth. The mastermind behind it all is an organization called the Golden Circle, a secretive group operating within the most prestigious schools in Gangnam. Even in the future he once saw, the identities of its core members remained unknown. The founder of Golden Circle saw the chaos of school violence and turned it into a business, recruiting bullies and strong fighters while forming connections with the wealthy and powerful. The deal was simple. They would protect privileged students and ensure their academic success. And if any student dared to surpass a Golden Circle member in rankings, the recruited bullies would take care of the problem. For Hyun-sung to get his revenge on those who threw him into hell, he must expose and destroy the Golden Circle. But something feels off. The Golden Circle's influence is mainly in Seoul and Gyeonggi-do, so how did they reach all the way to Daesan? He presses Min-chul for details. That's when Min-chul spills another crucial name, Shin Youngmin, a third-year student who basically controls the entire school. Hyun-sung knows Youngmin isn't a direct member of Golden Circle, but it's likely he was contacted to carry out their dirty work. Hyun-sung sees a potential opening. If he plays this right, he might be able to use Youngmin to draw the Golden Circle out. But there's one major problem. Youngmin isn't just some thug. He's as strong as a professional MMA fighter. With his current strength, Hyun-sung won't stand a chance against him. For now, he focuses on Min-chul. Without hesitation, he beats him down, making sure he understands what's coming next. This is just a preview of his future. He thinks back to how, in his previous life, Min-chul and his gang went on to become successful despite everything they did. He had been shocked when he learned about it, but not this time. In this life, he will make sure they never get the chance to live comfortably. He will carve the trauma into them so deeply that they'll never escape it. When Hyun-sung returns to school, Jungmin approaches him, thanking him for getting rid of the bullies. But Hyun-sung isn't interested in empty gratitude. He coldly asks why Jungmin is suddenly acting friendly when, during the hearing, he didn't even want to be associated with him out of fear. Jungmin had been too scared to testify before, yet now he wants to show gratitude? Hyun-sung isn't buying it. Hyun-sung doesn't bother sugarcoating his words. He tells Jungmin he doesn't care what happens to him from now on, and coldly orders him to get lost. Meanwhile, on the topmost floor of the school building, Shin Youngmin and his gang are deep in discussion about Hyun-sung. None of them expected him to have such a powerful backer, and now that Myungjin Construction is involved, no one in Daesan can touch him. But Youngmin isn't the type to back down just because things got complicated. He makes it clear he isn't letting this slide. Then, with a chilling smirk, he demands the head of the freshmen. While class is in session, Hyun-sung already has a strategy in mind. If he wants to bring down the Golden Circle, he needs to stand out academically. Their entire system is built around targeting students who perform better than their members, so the moment he consistently ranks at the top, they will have no choice but to make a move against him. That's when he'll strike. He knows that somewhere in this school, the real mastermind is hiding, the one who wants him gone, the one who sees him as an obstacle. He already has a few suspects, but without solid evidence, he can't act just yet. For now, he focuses on preparation, knowing that the real battle is still ahead. While walking through the city, his thoughts drift to a name, Jung Do-chol, Korea's first ever MMA fighter to become the UFL World Champion. The moment the thought clicks, Hyun-sung finds himself standing in front of a particular building. Without hesitation, he steps inside. If he's going to survive what's coming, if he's going to take down Youngmin and everything beyond him, he needs to get stronger, and this man might just be another missing piece of the puzzle. Youngmin receives a visit from a freshman named Park Jin-woo, a big and sturdy kid with a background in wrestling. Seeing potential, Youngmin immediately gives him an order: cripple Hyun-sung. Meanwhile, Hyun-sung finds himself standing in Jun Do-cheol's gym. Do-cheol sizes him up, noting that he looks like a high school student, then goes over what the gym offers, including the price. But before anything else, he asks why Hyun-sung wants to join. Hyun-sung doesn't hesitate. He wants to be good at fighting. No, not just good. Good enough to beat every bully like a dog. Do-chol, however, isn't impressed. He makes it clear that his gym doesn't exist for people to learn how to settle grudges. If Hyun-sung just wants to get stronger to beat someone up, then he can't accept him. He even advises him to simply work out a little. After that, no one will dare to bully him. Hyun-sung remains silent, his thoughts shifting to Do-chol's past. The man was Korea's first UFL champion, someone who could have lived an easy life off his fame. But instead, he's running a small gym in the countryside. The reason? A doping scandal. After defending his title for the third time, Do-chol was caught using anabolic steroids. He admitted to it without making excuses, and just like that, his career was over. But that's not what interests Hyun-sung the most. While in a coma, he had heard about Korea's second UFL champion, Kim Mo-yul. Mo-yul had openly stated that he wasn't a genius, nor was he particularly talented. The only reason he became the best was because of his mentor's special training methods. That mentor was none other than Do-chol. This was it. Do-chol had turned a third-rate fighter with no talent into Korea's best. If Hyun-sung could learn from him, he would grow stronger than ever before. So he pushes back. Just like Do-chol once did whatever it took to win, Hyun-sung is simply doing whatever it takes to reach his goal. But Do-chol only sighs. He admits he regrets what he did and wishes he could turn back time. If he had the chance, he would never make the same mistake again. That's why he refuses to train Hyun-sung. He warns him, joining a gym just to fight some bullies is a path that could land him in a nameless prison. Hyun-sung, however, has one final card to play. He offers Do-chol 100 million won up front. He knows Do-chol needs the money, so if he agrees to train him, the money will be sent within a day. Even if Hyun-sung quits midway, Do-chol won't lose anything. And then he goes for the killing blow. He reminds Do-chol that every choice has consequences. Do-chol knew the risks of using steroids and still chose to take them. The downfall that followed was entirely his own doing. Hyun-sung is no different. If he learns how to fight and ends up in a worse situation, he's fully prepared to accept the consequences. He needs an instructor like Do-chol, no matter the cost. Faced with Hyun-sung's desperation, Do-chol finally gives in, but on one condition. If Hyun-sung can endure just one round against him, he will acknowledge his determination and accept the deal. That night, Hyun-sung's grandmother is horrified to see the state he's in, his body covered in wounds, bruises, and swelling. She demands to know who did this to him, but he only shakes his head and tells her it's okay. Meanwhile, Do-chol sits alone with a drink, thinking back to the moment they stepped into the octagon. He had set a round to be 3 minutes. If Hyun-sung could last that long, he would train him however he wanted. The fight started with a single punch. Hyun-sung thought he blocked it. He really did. But then the impact shattered through his defense, sending him crashing against the net and then to the ground. Do-chol looked down at him, to which he asked him to stand up and that it's only been 10 seconds. Hyun-sung quickly realizes that Do-chol isn't just fast. He's got serious power too. He does his best to block, but after taking a brutal kick to the leg, he goes down hard. Gritting his teeth, he forces himself back up, refusing to let the pain slow him down. Only a minute has passed, yet his stamina is already draining fast. Desperate to turn the tide, he goes on the offensive, but Do-chol shuts him down instantly with a vicious uppercut. Hyun-sung crashes to the ground. Do-chol assumes this is it. Hyun-sung is done, but to his surprise, the guy drags himself back up, eyes blazing with a new fire. No way he's stopping now. Do-chol knows he has to put Hyun-sung down for good before things get out of hand. His patience ends here. No more holding back. He unleashes a relentless barrage of punches. Hyun-sung braces himself, expecting another leg kick like before, but instead, a brutal punch slams straight into his chest, sending him crashing down again. This time, Do-chol lays it out clearly. 15 seconds, or the fight is over. Hyun-sung struggles to rise, but his body refuses to cooperate. He collapses. Do-chol isn't surprised. That last hit would have broken most fighters. He figures Hyun-sung should just stay down and call it a day. But Hyun-sung has waited too long for this. 10 years in a coma, praying for a second chance. There's no way he's letting it slip away. Gritting his teeth, fueled by sheer determination and deep-seated hatred, he forces himself up. Do-chol, already removing his gloves, stares in disbelief. Even professional fighters don't bounce back from a hit like that. What kind of life has this guy been living? But if Hyun-sung keeps pushing like this, he'll only end up full of regret, just like him. With that in mind, Do-chol makes his decision. If Hyun-sung won't stop himself, he'll stop him. He steps up the pressure, his punches becoming heavier, sharper, aimed straight for Hyun-sung's face. Hyun-sung's mind screams at him to endure no matter what. Every second drags, the timer ticking down, just as Do-chol winds up for another strike. Beep, time's up. Do-chol steps back, impressed despite himself. Hyun-sung's endurance is no joke. With a casual remark, he tells him to hit the hospital tomorrow since they'll be closing soon anyway. Then, as if this whole fight never happened, he tells Hyun-sung to follow him. He's about to hand over his account number. A few days ago, a broker from a rising MMA association approached Do-chul with an offer. One last time on drugs, one match in their tournament, and a solid payday. It was tempting, but the only reason he even hesitated was Hyun-sung's training fee. Otherwise, he might have taken the deal without a second thought. Meanwhile, Hyun-sung keeps things vague when explaining his injuries to his grandmother, brushing it off as just a school fight. Shifting the conversation, he asks if they still have their housing subscription savings account. With Myeongjin Construction launching an apartment subscription program this month, he suggests they apply and try to secure a spot. His grandmother, however, worries they don't have the money, even if they get selected. Hyun-sung, thinking ahead, reassures her. They can borrow from the bank, sell their current flat to cover the cost, and if things get tough, they can always transfer the sale rights to someone else. Of course, this isn't just about housing. Hyun-sung already has a plan. Changbum will ensure his grandmother gets on the list, and while he initially wanted to give her 100 million won outright, just like he did for Do-chul, he knows she'd be suspicious of the money's source. This alternative method keeps her from questioning it. The next day, Jinwoo finds himself in the middle of something he didn't expect. Youngmin praises him for supposedly beating up Hyun-sung, saying he heard about it from other students and that Jinwoo can now claim to be one of his close associates. Jinwoo, utterly confused since he's never even met Hyun-sung, decides to roll with it. This could be a good opportunity. Later, though, Jinwoo is caught off guard when he actually sees Hyun-sung's face, battered and bruised beyond belief. He immediately assumes Hyun-sung got beaten up outside of school, and maybe he's not as tough as people think. Seeing an opportunity to cement his dominance, he tells his crew to spread the word. Any freshman caught talking to or playing with Hyun-sung will have to deal with him. While all this is happening, Hyun-sung is back at Do-chul's gym ready to train. Do-chul, knowing stamina is key, starts him off with endurance training. 2 hours a day, no excuses. Hyun-sung understands the assignment. If he wants to take down Shin Youngmin, someone who has been training for years, he can't afford to slack off. But even Youngmin isn't the final boss. If he wants to lure out the true power behind Youngmin, the so-called Golden Circle, he'll have to take down fighters even stronger. Do-chul watches closely, surprised that Hyun-sung actually lasts through the grueling 2-hour session. He starts to think, maybe this kid really has potential. Maybe he should test something out. Since being banned from stepping into the octagon, Do-chul has spent his time researching how to become the best without relying on illegal methods. Even if his own career is over, he wants his students to succeed where he failed. With that in mind, he decides to apply his findings to Hyun-sung's training. If Hyun-sung can keep up, then one day he'll be strong enough to make anyone kneel. A week later, the rain pours down relentlessly as Hyun-sung is seen in his seat with his classmate Kim Si-woo approaches him, completely ignoring the unspoken rule set by Jinwoo. Si-woo wastes no time explaining. Jinwoo has threatened all the freshmen, warning them not to even talk to Hyun-sung unless they want trouble. Hyun-sung, unfazed, simply asks why Si-woo is here then. Si-woo's answer is simple. They've known each other since elementary school, almost a decade now. No matter what happens, even if he gets beaten to death, he can't just stand by and ignore a friend being bullied. Hearing this, Hyun-sung suddenly remembers his past life. Back then, Si-woo also stood up for him after learning about the bullying. For a while, it worked. Hyun-sung was left alone. But that just meant Min-chul's gang shifted their focus to Si-woo instead. They tormented him relentlessly, and one day, after a particularly brutal beating that left Si-woo with a broken leg, everything changed. After that, Si-woo started pretending he didn't know Hyun-sung at all. Back when Hyun-sung was trapped in a coma, Si-woo had visited him once, sitting by his bedside with a heavy heart. He had apologized for turning his back on him, admitting that he just couldn't handle getting beaten up every single break. The guilt had weighed on him for years, and in that quiet hospital room, he had made a promise. If there was another life, he would never abandon Hyun-sung again. Now, in the present, Hyun-sung refuses to let the past repeat itself. Without hesitation, he shuts Si-woo down, telling him to mind his own business and stop acting like they're close. But Si-woo, stubborn as ever, refuses to back off. Even as the break ends, he insists that he won't leave Hyun-sung alone, promising to continue the conversation later. Hyun-sung, however, has already made up his mind. Going up against the Golden Circle is dangerous, and he has no way of knowing what kind of pain or suffering it will bring. What he does know is that dragging Si-woo into it would only end in disaster, just like last time. He decides that from now on, every relationship outside of his family needs to be cut off, no matter how good it might seem. But before he can even prepare himself for round 2 with Si-woo, the The classroom is already buzzing with whispers. Jinwoo has taken Siwoo. The second those words reach his ears, Hyun-sung doesn't even hesitate. He's out of his seat and sprinting out of the classroom before anyone can say another word. Jinwoo and his gang corner Siwoo. Their expressions a mix of amusement and menace. They question whether he intentionally ignored their warnings or if he's just lost his sense of fear. But Siwoo isn't the type to back down. Without hesitation, he fires back, making it clear that Jinwoo doesn't get to decide who he hangs out with. Hyun-sung is his friend, and no amount of threats will change that. He doesn't just talk, he acts. Without wasting a second, he launches a kick straight at Jinwoo, sending him crashing to the floor. For a brief moment, there's silence. Then Jinwoo, humiliated, snaps. He orders his gang to handle Siwoo, who manages to land a few solid hits at first. But outnumbered and overwhelmed, he doesn't last long. Jinwoo himself jumps in, delivering heavy blows without holding back. Between strikes, he mocks Siwoo, declaring that he'll tie him and Hyun-sung together and turn their school lives into a living hell. With each hit, his grin widens. Right then, the door bursts open. Hyun-sung storms in. He had already planned to deal with Jinwoo soon and now feels like the perfect moment. But going head-to-head with someone of Jinwoo's weight class is a losing battle without a plan. Hyun-sung knows he has no chance in a direct fight, so he takes another approach: provoke, frustrate, and make Jinwoo act without thinking. Mocking him with a smirk, he points out how Jinwoo always relies on his size to push people around and how he only managed to beat Siwoo by having his gang do the dirty work. As expected, Jinwoo takes the bait. Furious, he charges straight at Hyun-sung, exactly what Hyun-sung wanted. Using the techniques drilled into him at Ducheol's gym, he dodges and counters, landing a flurry of precise hits. Every strike is calculated, every blow meant to carve the lesson into Jinwoo's body. He isn't just fighting, he's making sure Jinwoo never dares to crawl back up again. After a relentless beating, Jinwoo finally cracks. Panting, bruised, and unable to take any more, he stammers out an apology. But Hyun-sung isn't done yet. If Jinwoo is really sorry, then he needs to say the truth. The truth about whether he ever actually beat Hyun-sung up like he so proudly claimed. And this time, he has to say it in front of everyone. Without hesitation, Jinwoo spills everything. It was never his idea. Youngmin had instructed him to go after Hyun-sung. As for the rumors about him beating Hyun-sung, completely false. Not that anyone needed confirmation after what just happened. The brutal, one-sided beatdown made that crystal clear. Hyun-sung, unfazed by the confession, turns his icy glare toward Jinwoo's gang. He doesn't need to say much, just a cold warning. If any of them so much as think about laying a hand on Siwoo again, they won't get off easy. To make sure the message sinks in, he delivers one final kick, knocking Jinwoo out cold. As the gang stands frozen, he leaves them with one last threat, his voice calm but lethal. If they ever pull something like this again, there won't be a place on earth they can run to. He'll find them, no matter where they hide, and end them. In the infirmary, Hyun-sung sits beside Siwoo, his expression as cold as ever. He tells Siwoo to do what everyone else is doing. Ignore him. If he doesn't want to go through something like this again, he should just stay away. But Siwoo refuses. A friend who rushed to his rescue isn't someone he can ever ignore. He doesn't care what's going on or what Hyun-sung is up against. No matter how bad things get, nothing will change. He'll still stand by his side. Hyun-sung, however, has already made his decision. With an emotionless voice, he tells Siwoo that his goal isn't just to deal with Min-chul. He's going after the gangsters who lurk in the shadows, and he's willing to give up everything to destroy them. If Siwoo stays close to him, the suffering he'll face will be far worse than anything Jinwoo did to him. He says it harshly on purpose, hoping to frustrate Siwoo enough that he'll back off. For his own safety. Without wasting another second, Hyun-sung heads straight for Youngmin's class. The moment he enters, the whole room tenses. Youngmin, annoyed by the sudden interruption, barely has time to react before Hyun-sung spits out a curse and charges at him. To his surprise, Hyun-sung isn't just all talk. He throws a punch that Youngmin quickly blocks. But Hyun-sung doesn't stop there. He follows up with a relentless flurry of strikes. Youngmin, experienced and calm, blocks them with ease, reading Hyun-sung's pattern effortlessly, except it's all a feint. Before Youngmin can adjust, Hyun-sung slams a powerful blow straight into his chest, making him stagger. And before he can recover, a chair comes crashing down on his head. Blood drips down, but Youngmin refuses to fall. Hyun-sung knows he can't beat Youngmin. Not yet. This fight isn't about winning, it's about proving himself. He never planned on walking away unscathed. Youngmin launches into a counterattack, feinting to throw Hyun-sung off. But compared to the brutal training under Ducheol, this is nothing. He braces himself, taking the hit but standing his ground. The fight escalates fast. Youngmin's blows come in rapid succession, but Hyun-sung weathers them, waiting for an opening. The moment he sees it, he grabs Youngmin's leg and throws his full weight into him. The impact sends Youngmin crashing into the classroom window, shattering the glass. His upper body dangles dangerously outside. The room erupts into chaos. The other seniors finally step in, yanking Hyun-sung back as he shouts after Youngmin, his voice filled with raw intensity. This isn't over. It won't end until one of them dies. Meanwhile, one of Youngmin's gang rushes to his side, eyes widening at the sight of his back, glass shards embedded deep into his skin, blood staining his uniform. 30 minutes later, a public announcement echoes through the school. The students whose names are called are to report to the principal's office immediately. Young-chul arrives at the scene where Hyun-sung had left Jin-woo, beaten into an unrecognizable mess, bloodstains still marking the floor. He knows right away that the principal won't be able to brush this incident under the rug so easily this time. The man is obsessed with turning the school into a prestigious institution, and something like this could easily tarnish its reputation. However, when Young-chul meets with the principal, he's blindsided by the response. Instead of showing concern, the principal simply waves the whole thing off. Apparently, news has come in from a trusted friend. Chung Boeum, a rising figure in the Myungjin construction succession race, has suddenly taken a keen interest in their school. Not only has he decided to become a sponsor, but he's also willing to cover a significant portion of the school's operating costs. And if he secures his place as chairman of Myungjin Construction, that funding will increase even further. Of course, there's a catch. Chang Boeum doesn't care about the school's reputation or prestige. He has only one condition. No matter what kind of trouble Hyun-sung causes, the school must cover for him. The principal then shifts his attention to Young-chul, reminding him that handling students' messes is his specialty. If he plays along, there will be performance bonuses, special benefits, and even priority access to opportunities. To sweeten the deal, the principal casually mentions that Chang Boeum has set aside a few spots in Myungjin Construction's upcoming housing project. Real estate is booming after all. Wouldn't Young-chul like a separate apartment from his wife? All he has to do is keep doing what he's always done, except now, the only student he needs to protect is Hyun-sung. Young-chul, ever the opportunist, immediately falls in line, pledging his full support to the principal. Seizing the moment, the principal even tells him to start calling him older brother. Young-chul doesn't hesitate. If calling the principal Hyung gets him an apartment and extra benefits, he'll do it gladly. Their moment of scheming is cut short when a teacher rushes in with urgent news. Hyun-sung has been hit. The room shifts in an instant. The principal and Young-chul, who had just been calmly discussing cover-ups and bonuses, now snap to full attention, demanding to know who dared to touch him. Meanwhile, in the principal's office, Youngmin sits under heavy scrutiny. No matter how he tries to explain himself, the principal, and more frustratingly, Young-chul, refuse to believe a word he says. The situation is beyond ridiculous. For the first time, he truly understands something. These adults are just as corrupt as he is, and more importantly, messing with Hyun-sung isn't simple anymore. With no other choice, he swallows his frustration and grits his teeth. Apologizing is the only way out. Even after leaving the office, the irritation lingers. Young-chul had humiliated him, and there was nothing he could do about it. He needs to be careful now. Graduation is approaching, and he can't afford to let this escalate any further. Even if it costs him, he decides to call for outside help. Elsewhere, a young man sits in his car, flipping through Hyun-sung's file. Something doesn't add up. Since when was Myungjin Group involved in this? Every student who had tried to mess with the target has been expelled. Even the teachers and the principal are shielding him. As the broker overseeing this case, Kong Taegu knows one thing. The Golden Circle does not tolerate failure. And right now, failure is exactly what's about to land on his shoulders. If he doesn't take care of this personally, things will only get worse. Determined, Taegu heads straight to the principal's office, confronting Oh Dae-won about the school's blatant protection of Hyun-sung. He makes it clear that if Hyun-sung is being given special treatment, he won't let it slide. But Dae-won isn't intimidated in the slightest. Without hesitation, he tells Taegu to do whatever he wants. The school has already settled things with the police. Frustrated but not deterred, Taegu heads to the police station to file a formal complaint, only to walk straight into another dead end. The police chief is just as deep in this as the school. Smirking, the chief dismisses his threats, telling him to go ahead and expose the truth online if he wants. But this isn't Seoul. This is Daesan. Whether the story goes public or not, everything will blow over if Taegu just takes a nice long vacation. It only takes one phone call for Taegu to understand the real reason why Oh Dae-won was so confident. The school isn't just backed by Myungjin Construction, they have the local cartel on their side. The situation with the local cartels is more complicated than Taegu initially thought. If this were just a matter of personal interests, there might have been ways to intervene. But this runs deeper. It's tangled with local sentiment, a territorial mindset that keeps outsiders from meddling in their affairs. No one, not even the Golden Circle, can just waltz in without consequences. Sitting alone, Taegu racks his brain for a way out. Failure isn't an option. If he messes this up, the Golden Circle won't just let it slide. They'll send another broker to finish the job, and when that happens, Taegu's own life will be ruined in an instant. There's no room for mistakes. He has to think this through carefully. Meanwhile, Youngmin walks the streets deep in thought when his phone rings. It's Taegu, but instead of telling him to keep fighting Hyunsung, the broker gives a different order: bring down Hyunsung's grades. It doesn't matter how it's done, whether Youngmin does it himself or uses others. The goal is simple: make sure Hyunsung's academic performance drops. And just in case Youngmin even considers backing out, Taegu makes the consequences crystal clear. Failure or betrayal means punishment for both him and Hyunsung. Before Youngmin can even process the demand, a hand snatches his phone away. Hyunsung stands behind him, calm and collected, reminding Youngmin of something he had warned him before: watch his back. The next day at school, whispers spread through Youngmin's class. His face is swollen and covered in bandages, far worse than the damage he took in his fight with Hyunsung. The other students murmur in confusion. Yesterday's fight hadn't been that bad, so what the hell happened to him after school? Did Hyunsung take revenge? Youngmin remembers exactly what went down last night. He had considered attacking Hyunsung, but the moment he moved, Hyunsung simply smirked, pointing out how the commission must be more important to him than his own life. The words struck a nerve, and Youngmin hesitated. That's when Hyunsung laid it all out. He already knew about the broker visiting the principal. It wasn't a secret. After all, the eldest son of Myungjin Construction was his guardian, and he had no intention of stopping this fight. If Youngmin thought that messing with him would simply end in expulsion, he was dead wrong. Hyunsung vowed to drag Youngmin through the criminal court, ensuring he was convicted for everything he had done. And when Youngmin finally got out of prison, the people from Myungjin Construction would be waiting for him. Running wouldn't help. Even if Youngmin left Daesan, Hyunsung would track him down. At that moment, Youngmin had to ask, what did Hyunsung really want? Hyunsung's answer was simple. He wanted to destroy everyone who messed with him. If Youngmin wanted to continue attending school, then he needed to endure the same suffering his victims had faced. And with that, the beating began. Youngmin never fought back. Back in the present, he seethes with frustration. He knows he can overpower Hyunsung in a fight, but that doesn't matter anymore. Hyunsung's backers make it impossible for him to retaliate. Yet, if he does nothing, the Golden Circle will punish him for failing his mission. Trapped between two impossible choices, he slams his head against his desk in fury. He has no other option but to hope that Hyunsung's grades drop. Even a little. It might buy him some time. Meanwhile, Hyunsung is fully aware that the threat he made last night will only work for so long. Once exams are over, the entire situation will shift. He knows exactly how things will play out. If he scores overwhelmingly high in the midterms, it will set off a chain reaction. Youngmin, desperate to survive. Taegu, desperate to complete his mission, and the requester, desperate to see him fail. Once all their emotions spiral and explode, he will achieve his goal. Looking at the bigger picture, everything is falling into place exactly as he planned. In the next 3 years, no one will be able to touch him. He has built this barrier with sheer malevolence, and for the first time in a while, he feels a sense of relief. Later, at Ducheol's gym, Hyunsung throws himself into training. Ducheol pushes him hard, pushing him to go beyond his physical limits. But Hyunsung isn't just keeping up. He starts using techniques Ducheol never even taught him. Impressed, Ducheol watches closely. If this weren't about money, he might have even asked Hyunsung to try his luck as a professional fighter. As Hyunsung finishes up and prepares to leave, he suddenly freezes. Standing at the entrance is Siwoo. With a casual smile, Siwoo announces that he's here for a consultation with Ducheol. A few days ago, Siwoo sat alone in the infirmary, deep in thought. Hyunsung had changed. The kind and friendly boy who once only wanted to make his grandmother proud had become someone else. Someone brutal, violent, and determined to take down gangsters. It didn't make sense. Then, a student rushed in with shocking news. Hyunsung was fighting Youngmin. They had nearly fallen out of a window. At that moment, it all clicked. Hyunsung was going this far for him. Silently, Siwoo made up his mind. Now, in the present, Hyunsung reacts immediately. He tells Ducheol not to accept Siwoo, even offering to pay for his fees himself to keep him out of this. But Ducheol refuses, seeing it as a good thing. A friend might keep Hyunsung from getting into even worse trouble. He welcomes Siwoo instead, but first, he asks if he really understands what he's getting into. Hyunsung isn't just fighting back. He's planning to take down every bully in the school. Siwoo doesn't hesitate. He already knows and he wants to help. He even shows his injuries, proof of the beatings he took while trying to stand up for Hyunsung. The level of violence at their school is far worse than most adults could even imagine. To prove his resolve, he pulls out the small amount of money he managed to scrape together for training fees. If it's not enough, he'll find a part-time job. Seeing this, Ducheol sighs in frustration, asking why Siwoo is so desperate. But Siwoo is clear. If Ducheol refuses to help him, he'll stick by Hyunsung's side anyway. That leaves Ducheol with no choice. He agrees, but under one condition. Siwoo starts training tomorrow, and if he can't keep up, it's over. With that, he makes a decision. He's going to give these two the strength to fight against violence. The next day at the gym, Hyun-sung tosses a pair of gloves at Siwoo. Ducheol might have accepted him, but Hyun-sung hasn't. If Siwoo really thinks their friendship is worth risking everything for, he'll have to prove it. No holding back. Hyun-sung charges in, ready to overwhelm him, but Siwoo strikes first. Hyun-sung staggers for a moment, surprised as Siwoo smirks. Did Hyun-sung forget that he's an athlete? As the fight continues, Hyun-sung quickly realizes Siwoo isn't just good, he's a natural. Memories flood back. When Siwoo was still competing in Taekwondo, they used to call him Mr. Specialist. He dominated every tournament, collecting gold medals like they were participation prizes. But everything changed when he faced the son of the Korean Taekwondo Association's leader. The match had been rigged from the start. A corrupt referee stole his victory, and after that, Siwoo walked away from Taekwondo for good. But now, watching him fight, it's clear, his determination never disappeared. Back in the present, Hyun-sung finally manages to take him down, pinning Siwoo beneath him. He rains down punches, waiting for Siwoo to give up, but Siwoo just laughs, hysterically. Hyun-sung hesitates. What kind of lunatic laughs while getting beaten? Eventually, he sighs and stops. There's no point anymore. Still, he has to ask, why is Siwoo doing all of this? Siwoo's smile fades slightly as he answers. When he was a kid, he was bullied too. He never told his grandparents, who raised him after his parents left. But at that time, Hyun-sung had stepped in to help him. Hyun-sung probably doesn't even remember, but Siwoo does. He could never forget. Now, Hyun-sung isn't the one in the wrong. So why shouldn't he step in for his friend? Giving up Taekwondo, fighting by Hyun-sung's side, these are his choices to make. Before Hyun-sung can say anything else, Ducheol calls out to them. Enough fighting. It's time to train. And this time, Ducheol isn't holding back. He's going to bet his life on getting these two to the top of the UFL stage. Ducheol watches the two kids closely, still trying to wrap his head around something. Why are they even getting bullied in the first place? Even without formal training, they're more than capable of handling a few guys on their own. It just doesn't make sense. As a former UFL athlete, Ducheol has met plenty of promising fighters, but Siwoo's abilities stand out even among them. His kicks are powerful, his sense of distance is natural, and at his age, there hasn't been a striker with this much raw skill. On the other hand, Hyun-sung is completely different. He isn't just physically talented, his mentality is something else entirely. He's fearless, relentless, and his ability to judge advantageous situations, exploit openings, and detect gaps in an opponent's defense is near genius level. If Siwoo is a natural-born athlete destined to succeed as a professional, then Hyun-sung has the potential to reach the absolute top. With that in mind, Ducheol makes a decision. He hadn't planned on offering this, but Hyun-sung's talent is too exceptional to waste. It would be a crime not to use it. He presents Hyun-sung with a deal: drop out of school and pursue fighting full-time. Ducheol may not be as reputable as he once was, but he still has plenty of contacts in the sports world. He could open doors for him. But Hyun-sung refuses without hesitation. Fighting isn't a sport to him. It's not something he enjoys. Every punch, every hit, it hurts like hell. There isn't a moment when he doesn't want to give up, but he has a purpose, and the thought of not fulfilling it feels worse than dying. That's the only reason he keeps going. Without another word, he slings his bag over his shoulder. If Ducheol sees things differently, then they should just call it quits and go their separate ways. Later, outside the gym, Hyun-sung turns to Siwoo. He asks if he's really confident about this choice, if he won't regret following him into this mess. Siwoo doesn't hesitate. He won't. With that settled, Hyun-sung lays down a few conditions. First, Siwoo will train with him every day. If he falls behind, Hyun-sung won't hesitate to abandon him. Second, Siwoo is only allowed to get involved in fights he can actually handle. If a battle is impossible, or if things escalate into legal trouble, he has to leave immediately. Siwoo doesn't argue. At least not for now. And lastly, Myungjin Construction will be providing him with a living allowance every month, and he must accept it. More than that, he needs to focus on his studies, because when the time comes for Siwoo to escape this hellish reality, Hyun-sung wants him to have a future, one much better than his own. Hyun-sung has no intention of letting Siwoo get dragged down into the same darkness. If anything, he plans to use this whole situation to change Siwoo's future for the better. When Hyun-sung gets home, he finds his younger brother, Hyunjin, watching a match on TV. Without saying much, he heads to the kitchen to cook. As he prepares the meal, memories from his previous life surface. He remembers that the team Hyunjin was rooting for had made it all the way to the championship, but Hyunjin never got to watch it live. He never said anything about it, but Hyun-sung had known. Hyunjin loved games but never once asked for a computer. Even when he wanted something, he always held back. Hyun-sung clenches his jaw. For the people who are precious to him, he will carve out a better life. one different from the tragic path he once walked. His resolve hardens even further. Whatever stands in his way, he will tear it down without hesitation. Later that night, his phone buzzes with a message from Ducheol. It's an apology. Ducheol admits he crossed the line by pushing the idea of going pro and promises never to bring it up again. But if Hyun-sung ever changes his mind, the offer will always be there. Time passes and the bright skies mark the arrival of midterms for the second-year students. For those in the top 10, students who have yet to be socially acknowledged, midterms aren't just exams. They are a battlefield, a chance to prove their worth. In the classroom, Hyun-sung listens as the teacher gives instructions for the test. He knows one thing: if he fails to get a good grade here, his plan will collapse before it even begins. Technically, he doesn't need high grades. He could just gather evidence and expose the Golden Circle's existence right away. But that's not enough. He doesn't want to simply reveal them. He wants to crush them completely. If he becomes an immovable force, someone they cannot manipulate or erase, then he will break their pride, the very belief that they can always succeed in their schemes. The teacher announces the start of the test. Hyun-sung grips his pen, knowing that this moment marks the true beginning of his revenge. In his previous life, even while enduring relentless bullying, he had never stopped studying. He had buried himself in books, desperately holding on to his education as his only escape. But when he became a vegetative patient, he had regretted wasting his high school years suffering instead of fighting back. Those regrets remain burned into his mind, seared into his memory like a branding iron. This time, he will not repeat the same mistakes. Once the test is over, the classroom fills with students marking their papers, trying to estimate their scores. A familiar voice calls out to him. Oh Hyeji, a girl well known for her beauty and charm, approaches him, asking if he has checked his own answers. She had confessed to him back in the first year, but he had rejected her. At the time, he lacked the confidence to balance both dating and his studies. Now she offers to help him check his answers. Taking a look at his paper, her eyes widen in shock. Hyun-sung has scored a perfect 100 in every subject. The next day, Young-chul wastes no time in trying to curry favor with him. Now that Hyun-sung is the top-ranked student in the entire school, his status has skyrocketed. With a fake smile, Young-chul assures him that he's willing to help with anything. Hyun-sung doesn't hesitate. He simply asks, does Young-chul know about the Golden Circle? Prior to this, Young-chul had been meeting with Oh Daewon, who had been bombarded with calls about Hyun-sung's shocking midterm results. Despite the exams being deliberately difficult, and the fact that Hyun-sung didn't even attend any academies, he had still secured the top spot in the entire school. Daewon could already see the future unfolding before him. Hyun-sung acing the CSAT, getting admitted to Hankuk University at the top of his class, and on top of that, having the hegemonic backing of Myungjin Construction. If everything continued like this, his long-cherished dream of turning this school into the most prestigious and nationally renowned institution would finally come true. But there was a problem. Hyun-sung was also a walking disaster, constantly stirring up trouble. To protect his vision, Daewon ordered Young-chul to keep covering for Hyun-sung, erasing any trace of the issues he caused. And to sweeten the deal, he handed Young-chul a lump sum of money under the excuse of rewarding him for producing the school's first-ranked student. On top of that, he promised to start paying Young-chul a monthly merit next month. Young-chul couldn't believe his luck. In that moment, he realized something. Hyun-sung was his golden ticket to success. Now back in the present, Young-chul eagerly asks Hyun-sung if there's anything he can help with. Hyun-sung doesn't hesitate. He asks if Young-chul knows about the Golden Circle. Young-chul, clueless, shakes his head. So, Hyun-sung explains. He lays out exactly what the Golden Circle is, what they do, and why they're dangerous. Then, with a calm yet firm tone, he tells Young-chul that if anything happens to him, it's over for him too. Young-chul immediately agrees. But Hyun-sung's request is simple. He doesn't need Young-chul to fight or interfere. He just needs him to stay put, to act like he knows nothing no matter what happens. At that moment, Young-chul fully understands. The word whatever should never be underestimated. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the school, Youngmin is on the ground, battered and bruised, with Taegu's foot pressed against him. Taegu glares down at him, voice cold as he delivers his final warning. Fail again, and he'll lose a limb. Youngmin, bloodied and beaten, can only grit his teeth and nod in submission. Later, Youngmin gathers with his gang, discussing the only way to deal with Hyun-sung without Myungjin Construction interfering. The answer is clear. They have to target him inside the school, not outside. That's when Bae Seong-ho, the top dog among the second-year bullies, speaks up. Instead of harassing Hyun-sung little by little, they should go all in, strike all at once. If 30 of them attack him together, the principal will be forced to hold back. After all, Daewon is obsessed with prestige. If he punishes that many students severely, it would destroy his own vision of a high-class school. Youngmin listens carefully, and for the first time in a while, he actually thinks that is a good idea. A few days later, during lunch, Hyun-sung senses something off. The atmosphere feels different, a strange tension hanging in the air. It doesn't take long for a few bullies to approach, trying to provoke him with cheap taunts. But Hyun-sung isn't in the mood for games. Without hesitation, he launches a brutal attack, dismantling them one by one. As they writhe in pain, he coldly tells them to pass a message to their leader. Stop overthinking it and just bring everyone at once. Later, Seong-ho finally shows up, his gang gathered behind him. But Hyun-sung is already waiting, calm and composed. Without wasting time, he tells them to follow him to the recycling site, where no teachers will interfere. Soon, Hyun-sung stands face-to-face with Seong-ho and 9 other bullies. Back when he was a vegetative patient, endlessly replaying his revenge in his mind, scenarios like this had played out perfectly. Every move, every counter, every outcome had gone exactly as planned. But now, standing in the real world, he knows the truth. Reality is far more unpredictable. There are no guarantees, and the real battle isn't even against these guys. His true fight will be against Youngmin. If he can't handle this, he doesn't deserve to take the next step. Using the students watching from the classroom windows as leverage, Hyun-sung taunts the bullies, daring them to step up one by one. That's when Chang-hyun, Seong-ho's right-hand man, moves first. He charges at Hyun-sung without hesitation, eyes filled with confidence. Because as far as he's concerned, once he steps up, there won't be a need for anyone else. In a school where students gather, power isn't just important, it defines everything. Strength dictates hierarchy, and those who stand at the top decide the rules. Hyun-sung understands this reality better than anyone. It isn't enough to simply defeat his opponents. The way he wins will determine how he is perceived. His past victories, as decisive as they were, had left the wrong impression. The ruthless tactics he used, the sudden surprise attacks, the use of weapons like locks and chairs, had given people the illusion that he wasn't truly strong, just desperate or lucky. If he wanted to take control of this school and build an unshakable foundation for his plans, he needed to erase any doubts about his strength. A half-baked victory wouldn't be enough. He required a victory so absolute that no one could ever question it. As if on cue, Chang-hyun, Seong-ho's second-in-command, lunges forward, throwing a punch with complete confidence, fully believing that if he stepped up, there would be no need for anyone else. But he couldn't have been more wrong. Hyun-sung, already prepared, doesn't even flinch as he raises his guard and effortlessly blocks the attack, the force barely making him shift his stance. Before Chang-hyun can even process what's happening, Hyun-sung counters in an instant, dodging the follow-up strike with ease before launching a perfectly placed punch that connects with terrifying precision. The impact is so overwhelming that Chang-hyun drops to the ground immediately, completely unconscious before his body even hits the floor. Jin-woo, watching from the sidelines, feels something unfamiliar settle in his chest. Acceptance. As he witnesses the sheer efficiency of Hyun-sung's movements, he finally understands why he had lost so badly before. His defeat had never been a fluke. Hyun-sung was simply stronger. But before Jin-woo can fully process his thoughts, his own judgment arrives in the form of a furious fist flying straight at his face. Si-woo, with a cold yet satisfied expression, delivers the punch without hesitation, as if he had been waiting for this moment for a long time. The impact sends Jin-woo staggering back, his ears ringing as Si-woo tells him that it's time to settle their unfinished business. Si-woo had initially wanted to help Hyun-sung in his fight against the second years, but Hyun-sung had refused, telling him that this was a battle he needed to fight alone. However, there was something Si-woo could do if he truly wanted to help. Something that would prove Hyun-sung wasn't alone in this war. If Si-woo wanted to support him, he needed to take his own revenge against Jin-woo. Jin-woo, enraged, immediately swings a punch in retaliation, but before his attack can land, Si-woo strikes first. Moving with the speed of a seasoned fighter, he slams a powerful kick into Jin-woo's ribs, sending him reeling backward. The sudden force of the attack makes Jin-woo panic, his mind racing as he realizes that if this fight continues like this, he could lose in a single decisive moment. Desperate to regain control, he tries to close the distance, but Si-woo isn't going to let that happen. Without missing a beat, Si-woo delivers a devastating uppercut, lifting Jin-woo's chin violently into the air. Before Jin-woo can recover, before he can even attempt to defend himself, Si-woo follows up with a brutal finishing kick, his movement swift and unrelenting. Jin-woo crumples to the ground, completely defeated before he even realizes what happened. Meanwhile, Seong-ho watches the entire scene unfold, his gaze fixed on Hyun-sung. One by one, the second years are being taken down, their so-called hierarchy crumbling in real time. Yet instead of frustration or fear, Seong-ho feels something different, an undeniable sense of excitement. For the first time in a long while, he doesn't want to rely on numbers or schemes to win. He doesn't want to use cheap tricks to hold on to his status. He wants to fight Hyun-sung fairly, to take him on without interference, without any variables affecting the outcome. Without a word, Seong-ho steps forward, his intent clear. There is no need for hesitation or build-up. He charges at Hyun-sung with everything he has, his fist aimed straight for his opponent's face. Unlike the others before him, Hyun-sung doesn't attempt to dodge or counter immediately. Instead, he takes the punch head-on, his body barely moving as the impact lands. Then, without missing a beat, he retaliates with a punch of his own. The fight escalates instantly, neither of them willing to back down as they exchange blows with pure, unfiltered aggression. Seong-ho might have the advantage in weight and size, but Hyun-sung doesn't care. He doesn't need an advantage. All he needs is victory. Hyun-sung doesn't waste any time drawing the fight out any longer than necessary. Seong-ho, despite his size and experience, struggles to keep up with the sheer intensity of the battle, his brute strength unable to match Hyun-sung's ruthless precision. The moment Hyun-sung sees an opening, he capitalizes on it without hesitation, throwing a devastating punch that lands squarely against Seong-ho's mouth. The sickening crack of teeth breaking fills the air as blood splatters from his lips, his head jerking back violently from the impact. The shock of the hit alone is enough to leave Seong-ho reeling, but Hyun-sung isn't done yet. Before his opponent can regain any sense of balance, he delivers one final, merciless strike to the head, the force behind it enough to send Seong-ho collapsing onto the ground, completely unconscious before his body even hits the dirt. The silence that follows is thick with tension, the remaining bullies staring at Seong-ho's unmoving form with a mixture of fear and disbelief. Without even sparing them a second glance, Hyun-sung turns toward them, his voice eerily calm as he gives them a single order. If they have any sense left, they should go and fetch Youngmin from class. There's no point in delaying the inevitable any longer. Meanwhile, inside the school building, a student bursts into Youngmin's classroom, his face pale and his breathing uneven from running. Youngmin doesn't react immediately, simply turning his attention toward the frantic messenger, his fingers tapping idly against his desk as he waits for him to catch his breath. The moment the words leave the student's mouth, his grip on his pen tightens slightly, but his expression remains neutral. Seong-ho has been completely defeated. That much was expected, but Youngmin knows better than to let emotions cloud his judgment. So rather than reacting with panic or frustration, he simply asks the most crucial question: how many students have fallen? The student hesitates for a brief second before answering, his voice slightly uncertain as he reports the number: 9. For a moment, there is complete silence. Then, slowly, a smirk tugs at the corners of Youngmin's lips. If it were just a few people, the entire situation could still be swept under the rug, dismissed as just another schoolyard fight. But 9? That changes everything. No matter how much influence Young-chul or even the principal have, covering up an incident of this scale will not be easy. If Hyun-sung's recklessness had brought him this far, then Youngmin would make sure that this time it would be his downfall. With his mind made up, he calmly orders his subordinates to put the plan into motion. The moment has arrived to take this battle to a completely different level, one that Hyun-sung won't be able to fight his way out of. They won't have to rely on brute force anymore. Instead, they will turn this into a legal case, something so severe that not even Myungjin Construction's influence can keep the police from intervening. Elsewhere, inside the teacher's office, the plan is already in motion as one of the students rushes to the staff, his voice filled with urgency as he reports the situation. He doesn't just explain, he exaggerates every detail, painting an image of absolute chaos, claiming that Hyun-sung isn't just fighting, but brutally attacking second-year students with no restraint, leaving them battered and unconscious in his wake. His tone escalates with each sentence, the desperation in his voice making it sound as though Hyun-sung has gone completely out of control. The teachers, already uneasy about the growing tensions in the school, exchange glances, the weight of the situation pressing down on them. If the reports are true, then this has gone beyond what the school can handle internally. The only solution left is clear. They must report this incident to the police. At that very moment, deep inside the principal's office, Oh Daewon sits at his desk, his mind occupied with the school's ever-growing reputation, when his phone suddenly vibrates. With a glance at the caller ID is the superintendent of police. A few days ago, at a teachers' meeting, Young-chul dropped a bomb. The Golden Circle, a group profiting from school violence, targets students by deploying bullies. Though some teachers dismissed it as irrelevant to Cheonil High, Young-chul exposed Minchul's gang as part of this network. He warned teachers some might be unknowingly involved, and exposure could end their careers. Minchul's gang and students like Seong-ho and Youngmin were all tied in, risking the school's destruction if revealed. Young-chul urged teachers to avoid sympathy or interference, stay quiet, and not play righteous teacher or face ruin. A student calls the police only to learn they're not coming, assuming it's a prank. Youngmin, furious, storms the halls, realizing both teachers and police are turning a blind eye. Frustrated, he plans to confront Hyun-sung himself, then gets a chilling warning. Meanwhile, Changbeom meets a loan shark proposing a deal, the shark's name on small projects, and in return, a contract under Shin Min-seok's name to seal their link. Youngmin gets a threatening call. If he interferes with Hyun-sung, the loan sharks, already in his home, will kill his father. Changbeom coldly tells Youngmin his family's debt is now a red label that can't be escaped, not even by giving up inheritance. Youngmin faces one grim choice: let Hyun-sung beat him silently or risk his father's life. When he protests, Changbeom declares there's no cowardice in fighting to win. Youngmin approaches Hyun-sung, barely holding back. Rage boils over. He throws a punch, but pulls back, exposing his hesitation. Hyun-sung smirks, lands a brutal combo, and mocks him. Kneel or die clinging to pride. Youngmin fights back, but Hyun-sung and his coach Dokchul have studied him, knowing he drops his guard predictably and overcommits when serious, setting up deadly counters. Hyun-sung waits, then strikes. One perfectly timed punch floors Youngmin. Before he can recover, Hyun-sung locks in an armbar, snapping Youngmin's arm. The crowd is stunned. No one dares intervene. Hyun-sung walks away, his dominance undeniable. Meanwhile, Principal Oh Daewon ends a call with the superintendent, coolly announcing he'll be paying a visit soon. Hyun-sung bumps into Siwoo in the hallway. Siwoo asks if he's okay, but Hyun-sung shrugs it off and asks how Siwoo's fight went. Siwoo says he won, then warns that Hyun-sung's brutal beating of Youngmin, with the broken arm, has everyone watching him now. Hyun-sung coldly replies there's no problem unless someone makes one. Hyun-sung hints he found something during his earlier fight with Minchul's gang, but cuts off as Young-chul walks by. Later he finishes, the world doesn't side with the weak. Young-chul hears this, pauses, then turns away, frustrated. He'd hoped Hyun-sung would show restraint so he could quietly manage the fallout, but with Youngmin seriously hurt, that's impossible. Young-chul recalls Youngmin's desperate call for help and begins doubting if he can ever win this. Even if Hyun-sung graduates, Young-chul fears being dragged down with him. Struggling with his conscience, Young-chul orders Youngmin to lie about the injury, claiming he fell downstairs, and threatens to expose Youngmin's darkest secrets if anyone suspects Hyun-sung. He warns Youngmin to stay away from Hyun-sung or face ruin. Stunned, Youngmin asks why Young-chul protects Hyun-sung while he's the victim. Young-chul coldly reminds him he's buried students before and demands compliance. Youngmin owes him. Later, Youngmin meets with the Golden Circle, vowing he won't give up and will beat Hyun-sung someday. But the group warns him this isn't personal, it's business, fulfilling client requests with controlled violence. They ask if he's ready to take full blame if he crosses the line, and the client's identity leaks. Chansu, the sole broker for the Golden Circle, takes notice, seeing Hyun-sung as a dangerous big fish, not just another delinquent. A week later, Youngmin is discharged from the hospital but immediately gets a blunt message from Hyun-sung demanding to know the client's identity. Youngmin freezes, realizing Hyun-sung is still tracking him, and that Taegu's threat still looms. Surrounded by enemies and secrets, Youngmin's trapped. Returning home, Youngmin finds his house wrecked and his furious father blaming him for going after Hyun-sung despite warnings. His reckless actions ruined everything. Desperate, Youngmin faces Hyun-sung, apologizes, regrets taking Golden Circle commissions, and offers to reveal the client, if he knew it, and even take revenge on their behalf. He begs for forgiveness, willing to become Hyun-sung's errand boy. Unmoved, Hyun-sung reminds him he crossed a line attacking him and his crew despite warnings. Still, seeing Youngmin's sincerity, he offers a chance. Endure 1 month of punishment, then maybe forgiveness. When Youngmin asks what the punishment is, Hyun-sung only says to figure it out himself. The next day at school, Youngmin was met with relentless stares and whispers. He became a public spectacle. He stayed silent, accepting this as his 1-month punishment from Hyun-sung, telling himself he could endure the humiliation. But inside, Youngmin wasn't thinking of redemption. He was already plotting revenge, determined to regain power and strike back no matter what. Trying to keep his head down, he planned to quietly finish high school and move on. Yet reality hit hard. While eating, Myung-hoon, a student Youngmin once bullied, stared at him down boldly. Youngmin held back, forced to endure. Then, to his shock, Myung-hoon stood, walked over, and poured a drink all over Youngmin in front of everyone. Frozen and speechless, Youngmin heard Myung-hoon's chilling words. Hyun-sung gave him permission. The humiliation stung deeply. Worse than the act itself, it was the crushing truth that those he once ruled now held all the power over him. A few days earlier, Hyun-sung had shared with his classmates his intense hatred for Youngmin, blaming him for years of damage and humiliation throughout their school life. He credited his survival and self-protection to learning how to fight, and declared it was time for Youngmin to face consequences. Hyun-sung announced a 1-month period, during which Youngmin would be punished without resistance, leaving participation voluntary, but warning that if no one acted, Youngmin would escape unscathed. He urged those silently burdened by bullying to finally stand up for themselves. Among them, Han Myung-hoon, who had suffered years of bullying from Youngmin, decided to act. Once submissive and obedient to avoid conflict, Myung-hoon tested Hyun-sung's plan by publicly humiliating Youngmin, pouring milk on him, striking him, and spitting in his food, actions that shocked the student body as Youngmin did not retaliate. Inspired, more students joined in, mocking and bullying Youngmin openly. Despite the relentless torment, Youngmin endured silently, recalling how these same students never challenged him before, and how Hyun-sung's icy stare reminded him to hold back. He resolved to endure the punishment for the month's duration, suppressing his anger in hope of eventual release. Hyun-sung initially hoped defeating Youngmin would reveal the mysterious client behind the golden circle, but no such luck emerged. Instead, he analyzed the limited clues and deduced the client was likely a student with similar academic standing and enough money to hire the organization. This narrowed the suspect list, but didn't reveal the true identity, so he resolved to be patient and prepared for the Golden Circle's next move while focusing on the present. Meanwhile, Youngmin's bullying became rampant and brazen, occurring openly as teachers deliberately ignored the violence, effectively condoning it. Hyun-sung saw that the students weren't driven by justice but by enjoyment, and that the system as a whole perpetuated the cycle. Despite this, progress was happening, albeit slowly. Then Hyun-sung sent Youngmin a message offering a deal. Accept it, and the bullying would stop, allowing him to finish school in peace. Youngmin agreed. Shortly after, disguised in a hoodie and mask, Youngmin attacked Minchul at his part-time job, catching him off guard. When Minchul shared this with his gang, they chose not to retaliate, knowing Hyun-sung was involved. However, Youngmin returned to confront them directly, revealing Hyun-sung's control over him by exploiting his weakness. The deal required Youngmin to make Minchul's gang suffer for 1 month in exchange for freedom from his own torment. Fueled by fury and desperation, Youngmin launched a relentless attack, determined to make them endure the pain he had endured. Youngmin initially lashed out, angrily attacking Minchul and then Chang-seok, blaming them for everything that had gone wrong. But Minchul struck back suddenly, stabbing Youngmin from behind and accusing him of losing control and betraying their group, leaving them all ruined. Weak and shocked on his knees, Youngmin realized Hyun-sung's true strategy, to pit them against each other until they destroyed themselves and worsened their own fates. The next day, news of Youngmin's stabbing spread through the school. Students talked about Minchul's gang, who now sought juvenile detention as a way to escape the dangers of Daesan. Meanwhile, Hyun-sung received word that Minho's family had moved away to Gyeonggi-do and that Minho planned to start fresh at a new high school. Chang Beom, offering to handle Minho, was told by Hyun-sung to leave him alone for now, letting Minho's despair fester by starting over elsewhere. Hyun-sung instructed Chang Beom that once the 4 boys finished juvenile detention, they must be sent straight to prison, allowing no chance of freedom again. Chang Beom, frustrated by his slow progress in his role, was urged to be patient and remember Hyun-sung's earlier advice. Shortly after, a nationwide real estate boom was reported, with the construction industry thriving and companies enjoying significantly higher profits. At a construction site, a serious accident happened when several steel beams fell and trapped workers. The chief worker initially prioritized the construction schedule over the injured worker's well-being, delaying medical help. The injured man was only sent to the hospital 2 hours later, and not to the nearest one, but a company-affiliated hospital an hour away. The company's cold response blamed the worker's carelessness and refused responsibility, even demanding the family bear the consequences. Meanwhile, construction company stocks surged amid this turmoil, highlighting the disconnect between booming profits and worker safety. Young Oh Jong-yuk, the injured worker's son, sat by his father's bedside, overwhelmed by grief and anger at how his family was treated. This traumatic event marked a turning point for him. At the same time, Chang Beom, young and somewhat restless, reminded himself to trust Hyun-sung's strategy. He understood that Hyun-sung's strict discipline toward bullies like those who tormented Youngmin would soon affect others like Chang-seok. Suddenly, a loud shout alerted everyone that the ground had collapsed near the site, trapping at least 6 workers. The foreman wanted to keep the accident secret to protect the company's image, but Chang Beom, recalling Hyun-sung's advice, took charge differently. Using his status as the eldest son of Myeongjin Construction, Chang Beom ordered the foreman to immediately call an ambulance and rescue teams, prioritizing the trapped workers' lives over company profits or reputation. He accepted full responsibility for this decision, determined to handle the crisis properly and honor Hyun-sung's guidance. Chang Byom's frustration grew as precious time ticked by without the arrival of rescue teams. He briefly considered using their own tools to clear rubble, but experienced workers warned him against the dangerous risk without proper equipment. Determined, Chang Byom ordered the workers to keep calling emergency services repeatedly, assuring them he would handle any complications. Then, a worker cautiously approached Chang Byom and revealed the root cause of the collapse. The steel bars in the slab had been exposed without properly hardened concrete because supports had been removed prematurely. The worker doubted Chang Byom's ability to manage the crisis, despite his status as Myungjin Construction's eldest son. Chang Byom firmly insisted that saving lives was the only priority and told the worker to focus on calling for help rather than complaining. Eventually, the rescue teams arrived and acted swiftly, rescuing those trapped. Most workers suffered only minor injuries, which brought Chang Byom a brief sense of relief. But that relief quickly evaporated when he learned that multiple news articles had surfaced online, spreading damaging and negative coverage of the accident. The rapid spread of information overwhelmed the company's efforts to control the narrative. In the midst of the crisis, when asked for next steps, Chang Byom responded that his sole instruction was to save the victims. At that moment, the chairman of Myungjin Construction called him, but Chang Byom deliberately let the call go to voicemail. Immediately afterward, he placed a call to Hyun-sung. Chang Sok saw his brother's mistake as his chance, criticizing him for focusing solely on people's safety while ignoring the company's reputation and financial fallout. Their father, having heard that emergency services, police, and reporters had all been alerted, pressed Chang Byom for how he planned to take responsibility. Chang Byom recalled Hyun-sung's words about their father's pride and craftsmanship, knowing his role was to obey and persist. Proposing to tear down the damaged building and start anew, Chang Byom faced his father's warnings about the immense costs, but he stood firm, arguing that protecting the company's trust and reputation outweighed financial losses. He warned that continuing with the damaged building would make selling apartments impossible due to rumors and public distrust, while Chang Sok insisted repairs would minimize losses. Chang Byom countered that money was secondary to regaining trust through honest admission and hard work, building a foundation for the company's future. Their father finally acknowledged that Chang Byom had understood what truly mattered. Though this accident differed from previous ones, it echoed past events when the chairman had publicly owned up to a cover-up and stressed construction safety. He was most angered by a basic casting error under the Myungjin name, commending Chang Byom for prioritizing safety and recognizing his growth and maturity. The chairman reaffirmed that Myungjin Construction was a family business valuing homes above all and encouraged Chang Byom to carry on the legacy, while Chang Sok stayed silent, seething with anger. A few days later at the hospital, a woman was devastated upon hearing that her husband would need both legs amputated. While most victims of the casting accident had minor injuries, he was the only one requiring surgery. A man beside her tried to offer comfort, mentioning that representatives from Myungjin Construction would soon arrive to assist. Still, her worries lingered. She had heard how construction companies often dodged responsibility and rarely provided fair compensation for industrial accidents. Chang Byom appeared with two colleagues, bowing respectfully to the woman affected by the tragedy. Before the meeting, he had confided in Hyun-sung about his father's rare expectations and the pressure not to disappoint him. Hyun-sung advised that handling the situation with care was crucial, noting two distinct groups impacted: the future tenants of the building and the injured workers. He explained that openness about the rebuilding process would quickly ease the tenants' frustrations, but dealing sincerely with the injured workers and making them feel valued by the company would be the greater challenge. A company official took the lead, admitting full responsibility for the accident and acknowledging that no compensation could erase the pain. They promised to cover all medical and surgical expenses, offered 500 million won in compensation, and assured the woman that her husband would be placed in a role at the corporate headquarters that leveraged his extensive field experience. The company expressed gratitude for his loyal service over the years. The woman and her companion expressed deep thanks, bowing in appreciation. Later, Chang Byom spoke privately with a subordinate, questioning if he truly understood the meaning of construction work. He admitted that before the accident, he had viewed their business simply as making money through building and selling. But the incident shifted his perspective profoundly. He now saw how many lives depended on construction, not just profits, but the workers feeding their families and the residents living in homes built through years of effort. He recognized he had long taken his responsibilities lightly, but now the gravity of the role weighed heavily. He credited Hyun-sung for inspiring him to truly desire the presidency, a goal he had almost abandoned. The subordinate noticed this change and felt newfound respect. However, when a hospital official reprimanded Changbyom for smoking on the grounds, he snapped sharply, reminding the subordinate that people don't change so easily after all. A week later, an unexpected ripple began to spread, something even Hyun-sung hadn't foreseen. A new power struggle was emerging. On television, a young man named Oh Jong-hyuk appeared, speaking out as the son of a construction worker permanently disabled in the Incheon accident. At first, the Myeongjin construction accident barely registered in the news, happening in a rural area with no fatalities. It quickly faded from public attention. But then, investigative reports began exposing a series of similar accidents that had been systematically covered up for years. Public outrage swelled nationwide as the truth came to light. A reporter featured Oh Jong-hyuk, who revealed how his father had been treated after the accident. The worst part, he said, was the company's mishandling. They delayed taking his father to the nearest hospital, instead transporting him 2 hours away to a company-affiliated facility. They claimed this was to secure extra insurance benefits, but his father never received a single one. Oh Jong-hyuk suspected this tactic was meant to downplay the incident and avoid responsibility, allowing the company to finish construction without disruption. Fueled by this injustice, he courageously spoke out publicly, determined to prevent others from suffering the same fate. He now worked on construction sites himself and noted that, though accidents still happened, the response had thankfully improved. Meanwhile, Chung Beom had been named site manager for the reconstruction project. He showed relentless dedication, arriving early every day and earning respect from the workers. Still, he sometimes questioned why he bore the burden of leadership and daily oversight. One evening, while eating ramen, the foreman informed him of a broadcasting crew visiting to film at the site. The visitors sought an interview with Chung Beom personally, a request approved by headquarters. That night, Chairman Go watched the news coverage at home, noting Chung Beom's prominent role in managing the incident. Positive remarks from the wife of an injured worker praised Chung Beom and the company for their sincere apologies and fair compensation. Intrigued, Chairman Go focused on an interview where Chung Beom spoke earnestly about upholding his father's values, prioritizing lasting business legacy over short-term profit. Soon after, Chairman Go received a congratulatory call from Chairman Park, who commended him for raising such a responsible son. Their conversation shifted to personal matters, discussing influential families eager to arrange blind dates between their children. Later, back in his office, Chairman Go ended a phone call and instructed his secretary to stop accepting matchmaking calls. When asked about the business outlook, she smiled and reported a flood of new construction orders, a new headquarters for S Group, 3,000 apartments in Gangnam, the Gangbuk Notion building, and employee housing for the J Chemical Industrial Complex. An urgent request from Daesan City also arrived, seeking to finalize a contract for a 5,000-unit housing project slated to begin within the year. This was the jackpot Chairman Go had been waiting for. At the next executive meeting, Chairman Go officially appointed Chung Beom as executive director of Myeongjin Construction, commanding everyone's full support as he took the helm to lead the company into the future. Chung Beom was stunned, struggling to process the surreal turn of events. Those who had once looked down on him, including allies of Chang Sok, now cheered and greeted him warmly. His father's advice to join the Daesan City project lingered in his mind, and despite the early stage, Chung Beom embraced the opportunity with eagerness and respect. Meanwhile, Hyun-sung received unexpected news from Chung Beom, disrupting his original strategy for the 5,000-unit housing project, which had been planned for much later. Chairman Go's decisive actions accelerated the process, elevating Chung Beom to executive director and unexpectedly strengthening Hyun-sung's own ambitions. Realizing the complexity of the unfolding situation, Hyun-sung knew he had to reassess the variables carefully. Soon after, Chung Beom arrived at the school and met with the principal, who, already aware of the promotion, offered congratulations despite the news not being public. Chung Beom expressed gratitude for the school's support of Hyun-sung and revealed plans to gift a new gymnasium featuring modern facilities and a swimming pool, made possible with city cooperation. The principal, thrilled by the prospect, saw his long-held dream of elevating the school's prestige coming closer to reality and pledged full support for Hyun-sung. Chung Beom then shifted focus to discuss further plans with teacher Jung-chul. Jung-chul stood before Chung Beom as he reassured him that it was acceptable for him to admire someone connected to wealth in a harsh world where survival was a struggle. Chung Beom acknowledged the rumors about bribery linked to Jung-chul's recent punishment of young men, but remained unfazed, promising unwavering support for Jung-chul's success at school. Recognizing the mutual benefits of their alliance, Chung Beom rewarded Jung-chul and his friends with an invitation to Miracle, a clubhouse for relaxation and fun, covering all expenses. He also handed Jung-chul a vitamin box, slang for money, assuring him that every promised reward would be fulfilled, emphasizing his commitment as Myungjin Construction's successor. Grateful yet surprised, Young-chul accepted the generosity. Meanwhile, Changbyum appreciated Hyun-sung's sharp understanding of his father's ways and strategic insight into the city's reconstruction plans, crediting Hyun-sung's help for his rise to executive director and soon-to-be chairman. Sensing Hyun-sung's ambition for greater power, Changbyum urged him to keep pushing forward and offered his full support. When asked if he needed anything, Hyun-sung boldly inquired about how much financial backing Changbum was willing to provide. As the school day ended, Young-chul gathered his students to announce a new scholarship funded by Myungjin Construction, totaling 10 million won. The scholarship, open to an unlimited number of diligent and promising students, stunned everyone, presenting an unprecedented opportunity for their futures. After introducing the scholarship, Young-chul began calling out the recipients' names. When Hyun-sung's name was announced first, the students reacted with quiet astonishment, whispering among themselves and trying to make sense of why he had been chosen. Despite their surprise, no one questioned the decision openly. The announcement of Siwoo's name next only deepened the students' confusion. Once the list was complete, Young-chul urged everyone to focus on their studies if they hoped to earn the scholarship in the future. As they headed home, the students continued debating the unexpected choices. Hyun-sung's selection made some sense due to his class president role and academic standing, but Siwoo's inclusion remained a mystery. Many suspected his connection to Hyun-sung played a part. They also found it odd that the announcement was so public, fueling quiet speculation about the true reasons behind the scholarships. On their way, the students unexpectedly ran into Hyun-sung and a wave of nervousness washed over them. One student, Jae-jin, known as the school's blabbermouth, was singled out. Approaching cautiously, worried Hyun-sung had overheard his earlier mentions and might retaliate, Jae-jin was surprised when Hyun-sung expressed a liking for him due to his talkative nature. Hyun-sung explained he valued Jae-jin's wide network of connections and wanted to enlist his help. Eager to please, Jae-jin quickly agreed. Hyun-sung tasked Jae-jin with spreading rumors across the school, suggesting the scholarship distribution was unfair. He promised Jae-jin a share of the scholarship money in return. Jae-jin was stunned at how simple it seemed to secure scholarships, but Hyun-sung clarified the goal was to expose the biased nature of the Myungjin Construction scholarships, while making the rumors more convincing by adding fabricated details. The next day, the rumor spread like wildfire. Myungjin Construction was accused of creating the Cheonil scholarship system solely to favor students close to Hyun-sung. Many believed Siwoo's scholarship stemmed from his loose connection to Hyun-sung during the Jin-woo case. Jae-jin further stoked the fire by claiming anyone who stayed on Hyun-sung's good side would be rewarded, regardless of how many students there were, since the number of scholarships was supposedly unlimited. Jae-jin kept spreading rumors that favored Hyun-sung and his allies, and while many students were skeptical at first, the stories gradually gained traction. Over time, more and more students accepted the rumors as fact, shifting the school's atmosphere and opinions about Hyun-sung's influence. When Seong-ho caught wind of the rumors, especially the claim that Hyun-sung was amassing followers to dominate nearby schools and build his own kingdom, he began reconsidering his own future. The idea that Hyun-sung's group could secure scholarships like Siwoo's sparked hope in Seong-ho. Wanting in, he approached Jae-jin to confirm the rumors and ask if there was any chance for him to join. Jae-jin assured him that with enough strength and loyalty, Hyun-sung would likely accept him. Though hopeful, Seong-ho worried about a previous fight with Hyun-sung that might block his entry. Still, he vowed to prove himself. Seong-ho waited nervously in a quiet spot for Hyun-sung. When Hyun-sung appeared, Seong-ho stepped forward, apologized sincerely for their past conflict, and explained his real reason for wanting to join. He needed money and was willing to follow Hyun-sung's lead. He promised loyalty and strength, swearing not to disappoint him. Hyun-sung didn't accept him right away. Instead, he confronted Seong-ho about a serious allegation that Seong-ho had supported Young Min's scheme. Seong-ho admitted the truth openly. Understanding honesty was his best course. Impressed by the admission, Hyun-sung accepted him as a trusted follower, but imposed a condition. Seong-ho had to pass a test to prove his loyalty. Later, after Hyun-sung explained the requirements, Seong-ho called his own gang together and stunned them with a bold announcement. He was leaving the gang to join Hyun-sung. This angered many members, sparking tension. To cement his new loyalty, Seong-ho challenged those who refused to follow him to raise their hands, warning he was ready to use force if needed. Remembering Hyun-sung's warning that obedience was mandatory, Seong-ho steeled himself to carry out the difficult test. He knew this challenge would determine whether he was truly worthy of joining Hyun-sung's inner circle. A few hours earlier, Seong-ho sat alone in a dim corner, wincing from the pain of a recent beating. Suddenly, his phone buzzed with a notification, a transfer of 5 million won. It was Hyun-sung's payment for the punishment he'd endured. The money was a stark reminder of Hyun-sung's earlier warning. Seong-ho would only be guaranteed the scholarship the next day if he stayed loyal and fulfilled his duties without fail. Hyun-sung promised more rewards for obedience but threatened harsh consequences for any defiance. Though Seong-ho questioned whether living like a dog was truly the right path, the lure of steady money left him no better options. Resigned, he decided to continue playing the role Hyun-sung expected. Soon after, Seong-ho made a call to arrange a meeting with someone important. He had plans to solidify his position. In the days that followed, Seong-ho worked aggressively to extend Hyun-sung's influence over the various gangs of bullies. He confronted one of the students he had previously beaten, delivering a chilling warning. From now on, the boy would serve Hyun-sung, and everyone else must obey Hyun-sung's orders without question. To enforce his dominance, Seong-ho repeatedly struck the student, leaving his face bruised and battered. A brutal message to all about the price of disobedience. Seong-ho also reminded the group that the rumors about Hyun-sung's scholarships were true, urging them to support Hyun-sung with real enthusiasm. The next day, two male students discussed Seong-ho's pitiable state, likening him to a servant worshipping Hyun-sung as if he were a god. Their shock grew when they learned Seong-ho was one of the two students awarded scholarships by Myungjin Construction. Confusion swirled as they tried to grasp the connection between Hyun-sung and the construction company. The other scholarship recipient was revealed to be Jae-in, the student behind the recent cyberbullying incidents. Jae-in coldly confessed he only acted on Hyun-sung's orders, and that was why he received the scholarship. With a chilling tone, he warned the other student to behave and never consider challenging Hyun-sung's authority. He hinted darkly that anyone who dared oppose Hyun-sung might suffer the same fate as Youngman, who had already paid the price for defiance. The atmosphere tightened as Hyun-sung appeared alongside Siwoo, instantly shifting the power balance. Their joint presence made it clear who truly ruled the school. No one dared to challenge Hyun-sung anymore. Even former resistors had given up. The fear he commanded kept everyone obedient. Meanwhile, far from the school, a car sped down the highway. Inside, a senior official of the Golden Circle drove while on the phone, receiving sharp criticism for failing to control the Hyun-sung threat. Pressured, the official apologized and assured that their plan was ready, promising action before November ended. Hyun-sung would not face final exams, but instead be forced to leave school. After the call, the official asked the student beside him if he was ready to carry out the mission. The student, Choi Tae-jun, a feared Golden Circle enforcer, responded confidently and reminded the official to keep his promise. Tae-jun remained calm and somewhat amused, mentioning a promised special reward for success. Later, Tae-jun met with the principal, who found admitting a transfer student at this point unusual. However, an exception had been made due to a direct request from the Seoul education superintendent. The principal felt uneasy about this irregular, possibly illegal move and suspected Tae-jun might be a mercenary sent by the Golden Circle. Despite doubts, the principal kept calm and warned Tae-jun firmly. Cheonil High was the city's most prestigious school, and no trouble or rule-breaking would be tolerated, regardless of connections. Tae-jun accepted the warning quietly and went to Class 1-5. Inside, he immediately spotted Park Jin-woo, who remembered their last meeting 6 months ago. Tae-jun recalled it as well. Back then, already known in Seongdong, Tae-jun had joined the Golden Circle and tried to expand his network by mingling with students from various schools. He had found Jin-woo mostly useless and full of empty talk. Seeing Jin-woo again, Tae-jun couldn't resist teasing him about still being the school's top dog. Jin-woo nervously laughed it off, downplaying the title since the principal focused heavily on preserving the school's image. He warned Tae-jun about Hyun-sung, a skilled fighter with strong backing. Tae-jun listened, but dismissed the warning, thinking Jin-woo was just pretending to be important. Still, he kept things friendly, figuring Jin-woo might be useful later. As class went on, Tae-jun's mind drifted to his real mission. This wasn't just about winning one fight. He had to stay in Daesan for 6 months and dismantle Hyun-sung's hold on the school. The job came with a large payout, especially for such a tough countryside task, but Tae-jun felt it was manageable. He planned carefully, deciding not to confront Hyun-sung directly at first. Instead, Tae-jun would pick his fights strategically, creating chaos and fear to destabilize the school and pressure Hyun-sung. This method was familiar. He just needed to shift the mood and turn the school into a nightmare Hyun-sung couldn't ignore. Confident in his abilities, Tae-jun knew the ranking system well. S was untouchable, A was the top 0.1%, and B covered the best nationwide. Despite being a first year, Taejun already held a B rank in the Golden Circle test, proving his talent. His plan was to find a chance to defeat Hyunsung, then manipulate the upperclassmen to isolate him socially, weakening Hyunsung further. He even considered eliminating him altogether to climb the ranks quickly. Putting the plan into motion, Taejun asked Jinwoo to show him around. Jinwoo led him to Hyunsung's classroom. Taejun immediately moved to confront Hyunsung, but Jinwoo was shocked and quickly punched Taejun to stop him. Jinwoo then dropped to his knees, begging Hyunsung to forgive the disturbance and let it go. Taejun stood stunned, realizing the situation was far more complicated than he'd anticipated. Taejun's arrival put Jinwoo in an unusually good mood. For the first time in a long while, he felt a genuine connection. Taejun had known him from when he was still respected, a time when Jinwoo believed he mattered. That recognition stirred something inside him, making him want to treat Taejun well and revive a trace of their old friendship. Taejun wasn't just another student. He was a reminder of who Jinwoo used to be. But that feeling soon turned to unease. Seeing Taejun provoke Hyunsung sent a chill through Jinwoo. A warning clicked in his mind. Things could go badly wrong. Not long after, Jinwoo did something unexpected. He privately pleaded with Hyunsung to overlook Taejun's behavior. It wasn't just desperation, it was survival. Jinwoo understood the stakes better than anyone. Just a week earlier, Cheonil High's atmosphere had shifted dramatically. This change came after Seong-ho publicly backed Hyunsung, making it clear that defiance would no longer be tolerated. From that moment, Hyunsung's power became absolute. He was treated like a supreme leader. Surprisingly, the students didn't resist. They accepted the new order. Under Youngmin's rule, the school had been rife with violence and cruelty. Bullying expected and students numb to it. But under Hyunsung's shadow and Seong-ho's enforcement, the cruelty faded. Seong-ho, a scholarship student, took on the role of protector, targeting bullies and punishing those who preyed on the weak. His relentless campaign gradually erased the school's violence. In its place emerged an unusual peace, a reign not by force but by justice. Hyunsung became the symbol of this new order, a benevolent king quietly respected by all. When Taejun challenged that symbol even slightly, everyone instantly understood the consequences. Taejun couldn't grasp why Jinwoo betrayed him so easily. He had seen Jinwoo plead with Hyunsung on his behalf, which confused and angered him. Jinwoo made it clear he no longer considered Taejun a friend. Their closeness had been brief, and Jinwoo never expected Taejun to return and cause trouble. Taejun's frustration grew as he pressed and mocked Jinwoo, who finally snapped, raising his voice with pain and exasperation. Jinwoo told Taejun he didn't understand the school's struggles or the fragile peace they fought to maintain. Taejun was just a transfer student. He hadn't lived through the fear and suffering. Jinwoo couldn't watch someone destroy what they had built, not even Taejun. Jinwoo's outburst broke something in Taejun. Furious and feeling insulted, Taejun punched Jinwoo hard in the face, then kept hitting him, fueled by memories of his achievements and the betrayal from someone he once respected. After 3 brutal punches, Jinwoo collapsed unconscious. Taejun turned toward Hyunsung, ready to fight next and prove who held real power, but the moment slipped away as students returned from break. Seeing the crowd fill the room, Taejun held back and warned Hyunsung to be ready next time. The students' eyes landed on him, not with respect, but with something unsettling. Taejun looked around, confused by the sudden mood shift. Jinwoo was gone, likely taken to the clinic. When class resumed, the teacher introduced a group activity. Taejun waited to be chosen, but no one invited him. Groups had already formed, leaving him alone. The teacher suggested he join a smaller group, but its members openly rejected him. Other groups followed, making it clear they wanted nothing to do with him. The teacher was shocked by the harshness, knowing he had just transferred. Taejun realized things had changed. The classroom no longer viewed him with curiosity, but with distance and disgust. He tried to dismiss it. During break, he approached a quiet boy with glasses, hoping to understand the tension. The boy ignored him and gave a cold, dismissive glare. Taejun felt the sting of rejection and anger rising again, ready to assert himself by force. Just then, the classroom door swung open. Seong-ho and his group entered the room, calm but firm. Seong-ho asked for Taejun by name. Taejun felt frustrated and confused, learning Seong-ho got involved because of how he had spoken to Hyunsung. It was Taejun's first day at Cheonil High, and he struggled to grasp the school's unwritten rules. Seong-ho explained no one dared challenge Hyunsung, which explained the other's behavior. This made Taejun rethink his plan. Doubting Seong-ho's loyalty, Taejun challenged whether he was truly one of Hyunsung's followers. The tension quickly exploded into a fight. Seong-ho landed a solid hit first, but Taejun regained control and pounded him relentlessly. Seeing Seong-ho getting beaten, the other students rushed in, attacking Taejun one after another. Despite being outnumbered, Taejun skillfully defeated them all. Just when he thought it was over, Seong-ho got back up and warned the fight wasn't finished. Taejun told him to stay down, but Seong-ho ignored it. A week earlier, after causing chaos in the third-year classroom, Seong-ho had received a text from Chang Byom. At first, Seong-ho wondered why, but then he considered the reward if he took down the Golden Circle's assassin. Even if he failed, Chang Byom would reward him with snacks, so Seong-ho kept trying. Back in the present, Seong-ho's refusal to quit came from past experiences and hopes for reward. He urged the others to end Taejun that day. Remembering lessons from Youngmin and Minchul's gang, and motivated by potential money, Seong-ho encouraged the group to hit Taejun hard and finish him off. Because of this, Seong-ho earned a reputation as second in command at Cheonil High, leading an attack on Taejun with 10 second-year students. Yet Taejun still defeated them all. He was tired of the constant chaos and hostility around Hyunsung since his first day, and was ready to stand his ground. Although high schoolers generally avoided fights they were sure to lose, Seong-ho and his group acted recklessly, like a wild pack. Taejun observed their relentless aggression and realized that if their numbers kept growing, the situation would become dangerous. Even involving the broker to mediate wouldn't easily isolate Hyunsung with such a large, escalating group. Faced with this threat, Taejun decided the only way to turn things around was to confront the problem directly. He planned to break one of Seong-ho's arms, seeing it as a decisive move to provide evidence for the broker and higher authorities. With that in mind, Taejun closed the distance while Seong-ho, still wary from earlier beatings, wondered what Taejun intended next. 10 minutes earlier, Jinwoo had gone straight to teacher Young-chul. Calm but urgent, he explained the tense situation. The new transfer student, Taejun, seemed to be deliberately targeting Hyunsung. Teacher Young-chul, a stern and watchful figure, listened intently, narrowing his eyes as he asked if Hyunsung had said anything himself. Jinwoo replied that Hyunsung had left the matter to Young-chul's discretion, a vague directive but enough. Young-chul saw this as his moment, a rare chance to assert his authority in the school. Suddenly, a burst of anger surged through him. He slammed his hand on the desk and demanded to know where Taejun was. Not long after, Taejun was summoned to the teacher's office. Without warning or room for discussion, teacher Young-chul slapped him hard across the face. Shocked and furious, Taejun staggered back and demanded why a teacher would hit a student like that. Young-chul remained cold and unflinching, telling Taejun he didn't understand the gravity of the situation. He bluntly laid out the charges. It hadn't even been a full day since Taejun transferred into Cheonil High, yet he'd already done serious damage. Taejun had beaten a fellow student, his supposed friend, so severely that the boy had been hospitalized unconscious and bleeding. On top of that, Taejun had caused chaos in Class 5, clashing violently with seniors and intimidating an entire classroom. Young-chul's fury flared again as he slapped Taejun a second time, harder than before. He made it clear that Taejun's words meant nothing here. No one would believe his side of the story. No teacher in the office would risk their position to stand up for him. In fact, Young-chul boldly stated that no one would admit to seeing him strike Taejun, even if they had witnessed it themselves. The punishment escalated as Young-chul continued to strike Taejun, driven by frustration, not only at Taejun's violent behavior, but also at the injuries Taejun had inflicted on Seong-ho and Jinwoo, who'd fallen victim to his arrogance and aggression. Later, Taejun managed to break free and call the Golden Circle official. His voice trembled with rage as he vented about how the entire school treated him. As an enemy, not a student, he bitterly complained about being isolated, humiliated, and now even assaulted by a teacher. The Golden Circle official listened quietly, fully aware of the stakes behind Taejun's complaints. This mission couldn't fail, not just for Taejun, but for the official's own standing within the organization. His career and influence depended on resolving the matter swiftly and decisively. He assured Taejun that he was already back in Seoul and would take charge personally, but warned him to tread carefully. One wrong move now could ruin everything. Recognizing the critical situation at Cheonil High, the official escalated the matter by calling in a powerful favor. He arranged a meeting with Moon Chang-ho, the superintendent of Seoul's education office. The goal was clear: to put pressure on Cheonil High's administration through official channels, limiting their ability to protect Hyunsung and forcing closer scrutiny of the school's decisions. Moon Chang-ho, who had benefited greatly from past ties to Golden Circle, agreed quickly and without hesitation. Golden Circle was more than just an organization. It was a network. One of its inner factions, the Golden Line, functioned as a secret alliance built on mutual favors and loyalty. Those aligned with the Golden Line didn't just get jobs, they gained entry into a tight-knit system where everyone covered each other's backs. Moon Chang-ho had reaped huge rewards from this network. Before the redevelopment boom in the Gyeonggi-do region, he quietly acquired thousands of square meters of land. When redevelopment hit, his holdings multiplied nearly tenfold in value. The broker behind that lucrative deal? Jung Chan-soo, the Golden Circle official himself. Feeling deeply indebted and mindful of how much his own career had prospered thanks to this connection, Moon Chang-ho picked up the phone to make a formal report to Jo Dong-jin, a high-ranking education official overseeing broader districts. He lodged a complaint against Cheonil High School, accusing them of favoritism towards a single student, framing the issue as one of protecting transparency in Korea's education system. But the response he received wasn't what he expected. Jo Dong-jin questioned why a Seoul superintendent was meddling in matters concerning Daesan, a region outside Moon's jurisdiction. The tone of the conversation shifted rapidly. Sensing resistance, Moon attempted to exert pressure by threatening to expose exam malpractice scandals in Daesan. Jo Dong-jin cut him off with a single chilling word: Golden Circle. The moment that name was spoken, Moon Chang-ho froze. He hadn't realized Jo Dong-jin knew about the organization's deep reach. Shocked, Moon asked how he could possibly know. Jo Dong-jin didn't answer directly. Instead, he warned Moon with calm, quiet menace. If this escalated into a dirty fight, he wouldn't hesitate to drag everyone down, including Moon himself. He made clear that people like them, operating without true institutional backing, should be cautious not to overreach. Moon needed to remember his place and not abuse authority by interfering beyond his limits. Shortly after, Jo Dong-jin paid a discreet visit to Cheonil High School. He met privately with Principal Oh Dae-won, telling him that what he had done so far was the most he could manage under the circumstances. While Moon Chang-ho wouldn't be able to publicly challenge Cheonil High for now, there was little anyone could do to stop the Golden Circle from working behind the scenes through unofficial channels. Principal Oh bowed respectfully and expressed gratitude. Though the battle wasn't over, he had gained an ally for the time being. Before leaving, Jo Dong-jin hesitated. A lingering doubt troubled him. Turning back, he warned Principal Oh that going against the Golden Circle was dangerous. This wasn't just any enemy. It was an entity entwined with powerful figures. If anyone in authority decided to dig deep into the corruption rooted in Daesan, neither of them would be able to escape the fallout. Oh Dae-won remained calm. With a steady voice, he explained that his allegiance had long been with Myeongjin Construction, the corporation heavily investing in Cheonil High's development. The company's likely next chairman, Chang Beom, had a strong interest in the school, making Myeongjin the school's main supporter. Even if the corruption in Daesan were fully exposed, Oh Dae-won said he could live with the consequences. He had no ambition to become superintendent, nor did he crave power for its own sake. His dream was clear and strong: to restore Cheonil High's prestige. This wasn't about personal ambition but genuine love for his alma mater. He assured Jo Dong-jin there was nothing to worry about. Hyun-sung, key to the school's transformation, was smart and careful. Dong-jin's position was safe as long as Hyun-sung stayed loyal. Meanwhile, Tae-jun found himself in a harsh, unfamiliar place far from the safety of the offices. Bruised in pride and body, he got a call from Jung Chan-soo, who tried to calm him down. He told Tae-jun to ignore the teachers and principal for now and to leave if anyone touched him again, without fighting back. Tae-jun was frustrated, worried about being expelled. Chan-soo promised to bring him back to Seoul and handle things if that happened. Despite the reassurance, Tae-jun felt trapped between two impossible choices. Backing out meant losing Chan-soo's support and privileges, but taking down Hyun-sung's image and power seemed almost suicidal. He believed the only way was to break Hyun-sung's spirit by ruining his academic record publicly and repeatedly. But the real challenge was Hyun-sung's strong, loyal bodyguards. Still, Tae-jun thought success would win Chan-soo's full support. Before ending the call, he told Chan-soo it would be him who saved him from this crisis. Reflecting on recent days, Tae-jun realized he had become a complete outcast for the first time in his life. The fear and respect he once commanded in Seoul meant nothing in Daesan. People kept their distance, avoided him. The humiliation burned deep but only strengthened his resolve. He vowed those who disrespected him would regret it. Determined, Tae-jun decided to call reinforcements. If he couldn't shake things alone, he would bring help. He contacted his old gang from Seoul, those who still respected and owed him. He asked them to come to Daesan and stir things up. Days later, during lunch, Tae-jun sat alone in the cafeteria. He ate mechanically, bitterness filling every bite. Checking his phone, he saw a message. His gang had arrived and were ready. Just as hope flickered, he looked up. Hyun-sung was coming toward him, calm as ever. Stopping in front of Tae-jun, he commented on the food, casually asking if it suited his taste. Hyun-sung sat silently in front of Tae-jun, who ate calmly. But Tae-jun felt a deep irritation watching Hyun-sung's angry, frustrated expression. For a moment, he almost lashed out, but held back, knowing attacking now would only cause trouble. He understood Hyun-sung wasn't someone to challenge recklessly. Confident his allies were on their way, Tae-jun chose to wait patiently for the right moment. Hyun-sung mocked Tae-jun coldly and arrogantly, provoking him. Taejun fired back with sharp, bitter words, trying to defend himself, but only fueled Hyun-sung's annoyance. Using his authority as Cheonil's king, Hyun-sung silently signaled his followers. They moved behind Taejun, grabbed his head, and shoved his face forcefully into his food. Hyun-sung stood up, looking down on Taejun, puzzled by the outsider's boldness and confidence in a place that wasn't his. Taejun, with food dripping from his face, was too shocked and humiliated to respond. Before Taejun could react, Hyun-sung's men dragged him from his chair. Taejun struggled and shouted for them to stop, but they ignored him. Filled with rage, he stared at Hyun-sung, silently demanding a fair, one-on-one fight without interference. Wanting Hyun-sung to face him directly and with honor, Hyun-sung showed no interest. He calmly acknowledged Taejun's strength, having seen him fight Sung-ho and others well. He guessed Taejun was likely a B rank, which impressed him. Still, Hyun-sung made it clear Taejun wasn't strong enough to warrant a personal fight. If Taejun were closer to his level, maybe things would be different. Since that wasn't the case, Hyun-sung chose to send his men to deal with Taejun instead. Taejun was overwhelmed as Seong-ho and the others launched a brutal group attack. Outmatched and trapped, his mind scrambled for a way out. He had only been eating lunch, never expecting such violence. Desperate, he tried to knock one attacker out to create an opening, but Hyun-sung twisted his arm sharply, stopping him in pain. Taejun fell to the ground, and Hyun-sung ordered Seong-ho to help him up. Hyun-sung laid out Taejun's harsh choices. Keep working for the Golden Circle and risk having his left arm broken too, crippling him at school every day, or betray his comrades by joining Hyun-sung as a spy, reporting back that he had completed his mission. Hyun-sung's plan was to use Taejun to uncover whoever hired him. Taejun's face showed his refusal to betray his friends. Sensing this, Hyun-sung coldly handed a knife to Seong-ho, asking if he was ready to stab Taejun for 100 million won. If Seong-ho refused, someone else would do it. Hyun-sung promised it wouldn't be fatal and that he'd call an ambulance immediately, trying to make the threat more bearable. The grim ultimatum stunned everyone into silence. Hyun-sung reminded them that earning such money honestly would take years, making the shortcut impossible to ignore. This revealed a darker side of Hyun-sung, a man shaped by bitterness and revenge, cold and ruthless, seeing everyone as pawns for his plan. Others had mistaken loyalty or friendship for his true intentions. Seeing the others ready to cover for Seong-ho at the police, pretending the stabbing was a prank, crushed Taejun's spirit. The betrayal by his supposed peers and the brutal environment destroyed his hope. Hyun-sung's meeting with Young-chul confirmed Taejun's origins, sent by the Golden Circle, Hyun-sung's enemy. This fueled Hyun-sung's resolve, but also planted doubt. Was Taejun a threat to his plan? If Taejun failed, only then would the Golden Circle unleash a top-tier assassin, making things unpredictable. Combined with volatile elements like Siwoo and Jong-yuk, Hyun-sung saw his careful plans as fragile. He realized trusting alliances or friendships was a weakness. His past plans were flawed, so he decided to control everything himself, trusting no one. After a tense pause, Seong-ho reminded Hyun-sung about promised rewards. Hyun-sung ordered Taejun lifted, and Seong-ho, eager for the reward, took the knife. Taejun was shocked. He never expected Seong-ho to betray him so completely. Panic surged as Taejun realized the attack was real and imminent. With no time to think, fear overwhelmed him. He surrendered, accepting Hyun-sung's second option just before the knife could strike. Hyun-sung's calm command to Seong-ho to stop came just in time. Taejun's surrender had made further violence unnecessary, but Seong-ho hesitated, reluctant to back down so easily. It was only when Hyun-sung personally reassured him that his reward would come regardless of whether he carried out the stabbing or not, that Seong-ho finally lowered the knife and stepped back. Meanwhile, Taejun was secretly thinking of escaping and contacting a trusted broker. Before he could act, Hyun-sung shook him to his core by calmly reciting Taejun's home address and personal details about his sister. The revelation stunned Taejun, his mind going blank with fear and confusion over how Hyun-sung obtained such private information. Hyun-sung dismissed Taejun's questions about his sources, instead issuing a chilling warning. Anyone who crossed him would be relentlessly hunted and utterly destroyed. The sheer weight of that threat erased all thoughts of rebellion in Taejun's mind. His body froze. He knew his plan could not continue. Hyun-sung then gave Taejun one last choice: remain with the Golden Circle, or serve under Hyun-sung like a loyal dog. Taejun remembered the big dreams and ambitions that had led him to the Golden Circle, the hope to rise, gain power, and make a name for himself. In that tense moment, Taejun saw clearly how far he had fallen. The cases he'd handled weren't just dirty jobs, they had real human costs. The crushing guilt shattered his pride. With no other option left, Taejun finally submitted, accepting the role of Hyun-sung's obedient servant. Hyun-sung ordered his men to help Taejun outside. The situation was under control. Seong-ho remained behind, handing back the knife, but voicing doubts about whether Taejun could be trusted in the future. Hyun-sung, calm and resolute, promised severe punishment for any betrayal, making clear that breaking their word would not be tolerated. Before Seong-ho left, Hyun-sung reminded him to check his bank account after school. His reward for loyalty had already been deposited. Satisfied, Seong-ho thanked Hyun-sung. Just as Seong-ho prepared to leave, Hyun-sung instructed him to bring Jae-jin inside discreetly. Once Jae-jin arrived, Hyun-sung quietly fed him a false rumor to spread that Seong-ho and Hyun-sung had grown distant, that Seong-ho no longer cared about Hyun-sung, and that he didn't even react to insults against Hyun-sung anymore. The gossip quickly rippled through their circle, sparking whispers that Seong-ho might have taken his reward and abandoned Hyun-sung. What no one realized was that the entire rumor was Hyun-sung's deliberate ploy. Bait to observe Seong-ho's reaction when the whispers reached him. Would Seong-ho play along or reveal the truth? In the director's office, Chang-seok and his team discussed recent company changes. Chang-seok felt upset and confused because his younger brother, Chang Beom, had been made managing director instead of him. Worse, their father might soon hand the chairman position to Chang Beom, which troubled Chang-seok deeply. A team member suggested Chang-seok fix things with his wife, hoping his personal life would improve his work situation. Chang-seok was clearly irritated, knowing he couldn't easily reconcile after being unfaithful. He realized that regaining trust required real results, not empty promises. Then Kim Cheol-jin, the internal director for Myungjin Construction, spoke up. He pointed out that Chang Beom, known as a womanizer and careless fool, had always been overshadowed by Chang-seok. But recently, Chang Beom's behavior changed drastically, showing signs of secret backing that helped him gain power. Chang-seok showed interest, and Cheol-jin explained that someone likely leaked news of Chang-seok's affair, causing a scandal that only benefited Chang Beom. Since then, Chang Beom appeared at work every day without fail and handled a tough situation with the casting department to the chairman's satisfaction. It was clear these moves were planned, but the backer remained unknown. Cheol-jin urged Chang-seok to discover who supported his brother to regain control. Chang-seok started monitoring Chang Beom's activities closely, but found nothing unusual, growing more frustrated. The team explored other reasons for Chang Beom's rise. One member noticed suspicious cash flow to Cheonil High School. Chang-seok dismissed this, thinking it a tactic to keep outsiders away from core decisions. Cheol-jin wasn't convinced and quietly investigated documents related to Cheonil High School. Chang-seok received a call from an unknown number and immediately rejected it. Moments later, his phone buzzed with a message from someone claiming to be Chang Beom's backer, requesting a private conversation to discuss important matters away from others. Meanwhile, Hyun-sung faced his own troubles. Chang Beom called, sounding worried, saying he'd been followed for a week by someone with a camera tracking his every move. Chang Beom warned that Chang-seok might try to use Hyun-sung in a trap. Hyun-sung reassured him and promised to get a phone with a fake ID to keep their communications secret. Back at the office, Chang-seok asked Cheol-jin what they should do once they identified the backer. Cheol-jin suggested two plans. Recruit the backer to their side, since this person had turned the weak Chang Beom into managing director, or if the backer refused, find a way to remove him completely. Chang-seok called Hyun-sung, telling him they wanted to recruit him. He explained the difference between himself and Chang Beom, and said their father would choose the person best suited to lead the company, possibly even hiring an expert if needed. Chang-seok insisted Chang Beom's chances were low, and implied that was why Hyun-sung was contacted. Hyun-sung agreed to join, but set one condition. Chang-seok confidently promised to meet whatever demands Hyun-sung had. After meeting with Chang Beom's backer, Chang-seok told his team he had agreed to support the backer, but only if the person was given an important role as an internal director. Cheol-jin questioned the decision, doubting giving such power to a newcomer. Chang-seok snapped, insisting the backer was more capable than anyone else. Cheol-jin argued that Myungjin Construction was a traditional company where executive roles required decades of loyal service, and that Chang Beom's appointment had caused no objections because he was the eldest son. Chang-seok interrupted angrily, dismissing traditions and promising major changes and rewards once he became chairman. He ended the meeting abruptly. Later, Cheol-jin sat alone, worried. He knew Chang-seok's many faults: self-centeredness, verbal abuse, infidelity, and acknowledged he only supported him as the lesser evil compared to Chang Beom, who showed no real interest in the company. Cheol-jin feared ignoring traditions would weaken the company and doubted Chang-seok's ability to lead. Determined to protect the company and its loyal people, he decided to speak directly with the chairman. Before taking any action, Cheol-jin received a call from an unknown number. It was Hyun-sung, who wanted Cheoljin to understand the true difference between Chang-suk and Changbeom. He reminded Cheoljin that Myungjin Construction was a company with a proud, long history. Unlike other companies where director positions might be handed out easily, those who truly grasped the chairman's vision knew such roles were not given lightly. Hyun-sung told Cheoljin to feel proud of holding the internal director position. Cheoljin asked Hyun-sung directly what he wanted from him. Hyun-sung explained he wanted Cheoljin to support Changbeom, who was no longer the careless troublemaker he once was. Though Cheoljin wondered if this meant betraying Chang-suk, Hyun-sung assured him it was not about betrayal, but about working together for a bright future for Myungjin Construction. A few days later, Cheoljin met with Changbeom to discuss the mysterious backer. Changbeom refused to reveal the supporter's identity. Cheoljin tried to build trust by sharing memories from the past, when Changbeom was a small child visiting construction sites with Chairman Go during the company's early family-run days. Cheoljin admitted he once had high hopes for Changbeom, but had been disappointed by his reckless lifestyle. He had believed Chang-suk was a better choice to lead despite his own flaws. He emphasized his loyalty to the company itself, like Chairman Go's. However, Cheoljin had recently noticed a change in Changbeom. The identity of the backer no longer mattered as much as the results Changbeom was now delivering. For that reason, Cheoljin decided not to pursue the backer's identity any further. With respect, Cheoljin expressed that Myungjin Construction needed leaders like Changbeom and looked forward to supporting the company's growth under his leadership. At a small local restaurant, Hyun-sung's grandmother moved briskly between tables, attending to customers with care and dedication. Though many noticed her tireless work and offered kind words, she always smiled and assured them she was fine. Deep down, her hard work was driven by a hope to save enough money to pay for her grandson's school tuition. One day, while busy at the restaurant, she received a call from a real estate agent. The agent asked if she was the rightful owner of the pre-sale rights to the Noblesse apartments and offered a tempting bonus of 5,000 won if she sold the rights to them. The offer made her pause and think carefully about her next steps. That evening at home, Hyun-sung sat down for dinner with his grandmother and gently asked if she was still working at the restaurant. He reminded her that between the money he had given her and her old age pension, she didn't need to keep working, but his grandmother softly corrected him. The money he gave her was actually a scholarship grant intended for his education, not for her to stop working. She then shared the many calls she'd been receiving from eager real estate agents. One had even offered 6,000 won, a higher bonus than the first. The recent success of the concrete casting project had boosted the value of the Myungjin brand significantly. The Noblesse apartments, located in a prime area of Daesan, were luxurious and in high demand. Leasing them could easily recover the initial investment. Hyun-sung firmly told his grandmother not to sell the apartment no matter the offers, yet she worried about the hefty down payment required, 200 million won, wondering how she could ever come up with such a sum. What she didn't know was that Hyun-sung had already secured the down payment. It was held in a bank account under someone else's name, a secret arrangement orchestrated by Changbeom. Though he kept this from his grandmother, Hyun-sung was determined not to lose the apartment. It meant too much to him, and he was prepared to protect it at all costs. Hyun-sung reassured his grandmother with calm confidence, explaining that paying back loans wasn't as difficult as she feared. They could rent out the Noblesse apartment to cover the costs, so money wouldn't be an issue. Just as he finished speaking, his phone rang. Excusing himself, he took the call. It was from Hyunjin's academy, informing him that Hyunjin hadn't attended class that day. Meanwhile, Hyunjin was leaving the Daesan City Library. He had wanted to stay longer to study, but knew he had to get home on time to meet the academy's schedule. As he walked, he noticed a group of young men nearby laughing and having fun. Their carefree, happy energy stirred a hint of envy in him. Hyunjin, burdened by his own struggles, felt the weight of responsibility and the fierce determination to succeed on his own terms, without relying on private academies. By chance, Hyunjin bumped into his older brother, Hyun-sung. They sat together on a nearby bench, and Hyun-sung mentioned that he'd heard Hyunjin had quit the academy. Hyunjin apologized quietly, explaining that he simply couldn't afford the tuition, even though he knew how hard his brother worked to support them. The exhaustion from his daily challenges showed clearly on his face. Hyun-sung told him sincerely that if only one of them could keep studying, it should be Hyunjin. He deserved the chance to build a better future. The memory of their past life weighed on him deeply. After being in a vegetative state for 5 years, Hyunjin had promised to become a police officer to avenge the bullying he'd endured. During that time, Hyunjin had juggled work to pay hospital bills for both their grandmother and Hyun-sung, studying every spare moment, yet still failing the exam. financial and other pressures had eventually forced their family to hold him back. Determined not to let history repeat itself, Hyun-sung shared the news that they had won the noblesse apartment, a valuable asset that could change their family's fortunes. At that moment, Chang Byum appeared and introduced himself to Hyun-jin. He revealed that he was supporting Hyun-sung with a generous scholarship fund, enough to cover both brothers' education. With this support, Hyun-jin no longer needed to worry about money and could finally focus fully on his studies and dreams. After Hyun-jin excused himself politely and left, Hyun-sung expressed sincere gratitude to Chang Byum for meeting so late. Chang Byum waved off the thanks, saying it was no trouble at all. He handed over the information Hyun-sung had requested on 3 specific people. Then Chang Byum asked what their next move should be. Now that Cheoljin had joined their side, Hyun-sung reminded him about the land he had mentioned earlier, the Jungwoo real estate in the Sangye area. He instructed Chang Byum to get close to the real estate agent there, so that when the property came up for sale, Chang Byum could alert him immediately. A few days later, at Cheonil High School, Jain proudly announced to a group of students that Hyun-sung had achieved a perfect score on the notoriously difficult 11th mock exam, known for its extremely high cutoff. The news quickly drew reporters who came to interview Hyun-sung at the school. Standing behind the reporters was Oh Dae-won, visibly excited. During the interview, Hyun-sung humbly credited his teachers for his success and pointed out that he had not attended any private academy. He knew well that the powerful Golden Circle would be watching the news closely. Meanwhile, Chan-soo met with Taejun to discuss the exam results. Taejun recalled that Hyun-sung had instructed him to submit a false report to Chan-soo. He mentioned that Hyun-sung and Seong-ho were currently not speaking and that Hyun-sung seemed cornered by recent events. Taejun admitted he needed more time to manage the situation. Chan-soo acknowledged this, but stressed the importance of showing concrete results, warning Taejun that this was his last chance to satisfy the client before the holidays, no matter what it took. Later, Taejun secretly met with Hyun-sung to deliver an important report. Hyun-sung explained that when he first learned he was a target of the Golden Circle, he spent much time reflecting and asking himself who might have hired them. To solve this, he carefully reviewed a list of possible suspects, narrowing it down to 3: Yoo Jin-young, Lee Jin-young, and Choi Seona. These 3 fit the criteria explaining why the Golden Circle existed and why Taejun and Jain were used as bait. After hearing Taejun's latest information that day, Hyun-sung was able to narrow the list down to one person. He told Taejun to prepare himself because by the next day, they would sever ties with the Golden Circle for good. The next day, Young-chul coached male students playing ball outside. During the game, Hyun-sung skillfully dodged defenders and scored a goal. Nearby, Choi Seona quietly discussed with a friend whether she should try to ask Hyun-sung out. Later, during Hyun-sung's break, Seona approached and offered him a drink. Smiling to himself, Hyun-sung suggested she accompany him somewhere else, as he had something important to discuss. About 15 minutes later, during class break, Seona's friend sat in the classroom, curious and a little worried because Seona had not yet returned. Just as class was about to start, Seona sent a text to explain where she had gone and what she was doing. Seona nervously stepped into the PE storeroom, her heart pounding as Hyun-sung followed closely behind and asked her to close the door. Once it was shut, Hyun-sung began to explain the weight of the troubles he'd been facing recently, especially the series of fights other students kept provoking him into. He revealed that these were not random acts, but orchestrated attacks ordered by someone hidden behind the scenes. Seona's eyes widened in surprise. Hyun-sung continued, telling her about the trap he had set to uncover the mastermind. He had instructed Jain to leak 3 different pieces of false information, each aimed at one of the 3 suspects he was closely monitoring. Thanks to a spy he'd planted among the students, he caught a clear reaction from one suspect after hearing the false data. Then he turned to Seona and asked what she thought about the situation. Suddenly, Hyeji burst into the storeroom, visibly upset, demanding to know what was going on. Hyun-sung quickly told Seona to leave quietly, and she slipped out without a sound. Once the door closed behind Seona, Hyun-sung told Hyeji she needed to stay behind. He explained that all signs pointed to Seona as the client who had ordered the fights, but then added that there was a reason why Seona couldn't possibly be the client. Hyeji, frightened, confessed that Hyun-sung was scaring her. Later, Hyun-sung asked Chang Byum to run a thorough background check on the 3 suspects to uncover the truth. This investigation revealed a secret about Choi Seona that no one else knew. She had transferred from Seoul to Daesan because her brother had been brutally bullied at school, leading to a terrible incident that forced the family to relocate. Seona had confided that no matter the cause, she hated whoever was behind her brother's bullying. She also admired Hyun-sung for facing his own struggles bravely, even though her brother couldn't defend himself. This made Hyun-sung suspect that Seona had overheard the false information Jain leaked and possibly passed it on, most likely to Hyeji. Feeling betrayed and angry, Hyun-sung pulled Hyeji into a tight hug and cursed her for what she might have done. But Hyeji quickly pulled away, insisting she was not responsible and that she hadn't even been able to open the storeroom door. Refusing to accept blame, she suggested that Seona must be the one who hired those trying to sabotage Hyunsung's progress, particularly with his grades. Hyunsung calmly reminded her that Seona's parents were well-known active members of the anti-school violence committee, making it unlikely she'd be involved in such schemes. Yet, Hyeji suddenly let slip a careless remark, implying that Seona's father might have some connection to the Golden Circle. Hyunsung's face instantly turned cold. He warned her that he had never mentioned the Golden Circle's name in her presence. Realizing she had revealed too much, Hyeji dropped her act of crying and admitted defeat. She then blamed Hyunsung, bitterly accusing him that if he hadn't been so cold-hearted, none of this would have happened. A few months earlier, Hyeji had developed a crush on Hyunsung, a model student with a great personality who attracted much attention. Many girls liked him, and several had confessed but were rejected. Although Hyeji was popular, she feared rejection. Instead of rushing, she approached carefully by offering drinks and asking for help with tough class questions to get closer. His straightforward attitude made her hopeful. She discovered his ideal type was similar to her, boosting her confidence. She planned everything carefully, preparing a gift and a letter. But when she finally asked him out, she faced rejection for the first time, ending in deep disappointment. Hyeji came from a wealthy family and had never lacked anything growing up. She always felt special and important. The rejection brought her unexpected despair and anger. Blinded by spite and jealousy as Hyunsung grew more popular, she decided on revenge. Without thinking of consequences, she secretly hired the Golden Circle to cause trouble for him. Things quickly spiraled out of control, but she only wanted Hyunsung to feel her pain. Afterward, she confessed and begged for forgiveness, promising never to do it again. Hyunsung, faced with her harmful intentions, lost all emotion and calmly explained he rejected her not because he disliked her, but because he couldn't keep up with her spending on snacks and gadgets. Even if he liked her, he had to say no. Desperate, Hyeji held his hand, asking for honesty and to go back to how things were. He coldly said it was too late and vowed to destroy everything she cared about, her family, and her happiness. He attacked her physically, knowing she would never understand the pain of his 10 years of bullying and family misfortunes. He warned her to find a good plastic surgeon for the damage he caused. At that moment, teacher Youngchul entered the storeroom and saw Hyeji badly beaten. Hyunsung told him that Hyeji had hired the Golden Circle to cause trouble. Teacher Youngchul understood she had to face consequences but mentioned her influential father in Daesan. Hyunsung told him to avoid complications and just ensure Hyeji got home safely. When Hyeji's father saw her battered face, he flew into a rage, vowing to imprison Hyunsung, teacher Youngchul, and Changbyom for what happened. He called Chansu, but the line was busy because Hyunsung was on the phone with Chansu himself. Hyeji's father confronted Chansu over the phone about his daughter's situation, but Chansu showed no concern. He admitted that although the Golden Circle had never failed before, now that failure had happened and he had lost control, to protect himself, Chansu had secretly handed all evidence of their dealings over to Hyunsung as insurance. He coldly put the responsibility on Hyeji's father and abruptly ended the call, angering him. Just then, the doorbell rang. Meanwhile, Hyunsung had already contacted Chansu earlier, informing him that he sent Hyeji home. This surprised Chansu, who wondered how Hyunsung discovered that Hyeji was the client, realizing that Taejun must have betrayed him. Hyunsung warned Chansu that he had become a threat to the Golden Circle's survival and promised to erase all traces of the matter, including silencing Chansu permanently. He demanded Chansu report back to his boss that the job was successfully completed, the client was satisfied, and to send Taejun back to Seoul. Chansu argued that doing so would anger the client, but Hyunsung told him to forget about the client. It turned out Hyunsung was at Hyeji's home, presenting her father with two options: either report Hyunsung to the police and involve the Golden Circle, which would prompt Hyunsung to expose the proof from Chansu, ruining the Golden Circle and putting Chansu and Chunsum in prison, with Hyeji facing juvenile detention, or Chunsum had to personally cut Hyeji's Achilles heel, a threat to silence her permanently. Hyunsung warned that any attempt by Chunsum to bully him wouldn't work because he had Changbyom backing him. After delivering this ultimatum, Hyunsung left. Shockingly, Chunsum grabbed a knife and chased after his daughter, who tried to run away. Later, Hyunsung met with Chansu and revealed that even if Chunsum chose the second option, he planned to push him to the brink by exposing all his illegal business acts. When Chunsum was desperate, Hyunsung would make the evidence public. If Chunsum harmed Hyeji, Hyunsung would also accuse him of domestic violence. Chansu pointed out that although Hyunsung bought himself time, the Golden Circle would eventually find out. Hyun-sung proposed a deal for Chan-soo to become a Trojan horse inside the Golden Circle, working for him not out of loyalty but for money. Chan-soo hesitated, fearing the risks of being a spy within the dangerous organization. Chan-soo confessed he joined the Golden Circle to rise to the country's top, cooperating with Hyun-sung only out of fear. Hyun-sung then mentioned the Celestials, stunning Chan-soo. Hyun-sung told Chan-soo that in 2 years, he would lead the Golden Circle's top-tier members. The Golden Circle was a vertical society with various classes, where the top tier included politicians, chaebols, and businessmen. Brokers served the top tier, and the highest-ranking brokers were accepted as members of the top tier themselves. Tempted, Chan-soo asked how Hyun-sung would make him part of that elite. Hyun-sung said Chan-soo only had to stay silent for 1 month, after which he would get what he wanted. Chan-soo wondered how Hyun-sung knew about the top tier's existence, but that truth would only come out years later. In a past life, Hyun-sung had learned that although the Golden Circle's secrets were exposed, the Golden Gate was shut without revealing any actual top-tier members. Hyun-sung knew taking down one Golden Circle wouldn't be enough because the wealth and power behind it wouldn't fall easily. He was ready to take the next step in his plan as he arrived in front of a building. Hyun-sung met with Senator Kim Pan-ho of the Prosperity Party, proposing a deal. He knew Pan-ho's rise, from his days as a professor looking after the children of powerful figures to becoming a senator by leveraging those connections, had recently been threatened by a corruption scandal exposed by Senator Jang Hoyle of the opposing party. Hyun-sung suspected that Jang Hoyle wasn't acting on his own, but was manipulated by Yang Minggu, the Prosperity Party leader who wanted to quietly remove Pan-ho as a rising threat without causing a major uproar. Hyun-sung suggested that since Pan-ho couldn't deny the corruption allegations, the best move was to attack the messenger instead. He revealed that an upcoming drug scandal involving international students would soon surface in the news, and conveniently, one of those students was Jang Hoyle's son studying abroad. This, Hyun-sung argued, was an opportunity for Pan-ho to strike back and discredit his accuser. Skeptical at first, Pan-ho listened as Hyun-sung said the drug case would break soon regardless, so playing his cards right could help him escape the current scandal. Hyun-sung hinted he had many other plans to assist Pan-ho and gave him 1 week to decide if he wanted to trust him. A few days later, the drug scandal did hit the news. Pan-ho met Hyun-sung again, astonished at how the high school student knew about the case before Jang Hoyle. Hyun-sung credited his friend Chang Beom's extensive network for the intel. With Pan-ho now open to listening, Hyun-sung asked if Pan-ho had ambitions for the presidency, to which Pan-ho reacted with shock. Hyun-sung explained bluntly that Pan-ho's chances were slim because, born into the top 0.01% elite, he lacked a compelling narrative to win the people's support, a lesson Hyun-sung claimed to have learned from his past life. But knowing Pan-ho wouldn't quit, Hyun-sung offered to be his kingmaker. Back in school, students discussed Hyeji's recent severe injury and hospitalization, confirming Hyun-sung's suspicion that Chun-sum had indeed attacked her Achilles heel in a moment of irrationality. Hyun-sung planned to arrange protection for Hyeji. All that was left was securing Pan-ho's acceptance of his proposal. Hyun-sung promised Pan-ho that Myungjin Construction would handle campaign funding discreetly, as construction projects made it easy to launder money. They would also craft the perfect presidential narrative for Pan-ho, the politician who would take down the Golden Circle, making him a hero with no risk, simply by cooperating when asked. Pan-ho remained doubtful. After all, Hyun-sung was only a 17-year-old high school student claiming he had plenty of time and backing from Chang Beom, whose identity Pan-ho's ally Chang Seok was desperately searching for. Hyun-sung warned that if Pan-ho rejected the offer, he would initiate Plan B, eliminating Pan-ho to protect his own identity and find another candidate to champion his cause. He feared Pan-ho might even join forces with the Golden Circle, which he desperately hoped to avoid. As Hyun-sung was about to leave the school, Pan-ho's bodyguard escorted him back to meet the senator. Pan-ho confronted Hyun-sung, revealing that he had already uncovered the existence of the Golden Circle. Curious, he asked Hyun-sung why he was so determined to destroy it. Hyun-sung responded with quiet intensity, asking Pan-ho if he had ever experienced the crushing helplessness caused by the Golden Circle's malice, how it preyed on the poor and weak, those who couldn't fight back, couldn't quit school, and couldn't expect help from teachers or adults. Because the Golden Circle's influence made adults wary of intervening, the victims were left trapped in a cycle of violence and despair. For Hyun-sung, it felt like living in hell. Though he acknowledged that violence might be an eternal human problem, he was resolved to destroy the Golden Circle that thrived on that suffering, no matter what. Moved by Hyun-sung's conviction, Pan-ho told him to lay out his plan, promising to listen and consider it carefully. Hyun-sung explained he had already secured a broker willing to post a fake report that would make it appear the Golden Circle's commission dealings were successful, while secretly framing them for manipulating results and deceiving their clients. His long-term strategy was to transfer to a prestigious Gangnam school for his senior year to maintain his national top ranking. At that moment, he planned to expose the Golden Circle's truth publicly, an event that would cause an immense scandal. He reasoned that a school environment was a closed space with limited outside interference, allowing him to endure any pressure or attempts to remove him. All he needed was enough support from Panho to prevent being expelled or silenced. Panho sensed the fierce determination in Hyun-sung, recognizing in him a similar drive and ambition. He admitted he wanted to try becoming president himself, someone who had never tasted failure and believed he could be the best in the country. However, Panho warned Hyun-sung bluntly, if he failed even once, Panho would abandon him without hesitation and erase all evidence of their cooperation. If Hyun-sung could handle the pressure and risks that came with that, Panho would accept his offer and back him. Seona stood beside Hyun-sung, accusing him of being the reason Hyeji dropped out and landed in the emergency room. She expressed her hatred for people like Hyeji, those who cared only about themselves, and offered to help Hyun-sung, but when he asked how far she was willing to go, she fell silent. He dismissed her, warning that weak resolve only got in the way, and that anyone planning to destroy others must be ready to destroy themselves too. Afterward, Siwoo joined Hyun-sung. They both knew this fight only mattered in Daewon, not Seoul. Hyun-sung was already heading into the fire alone, and all he needed was for Siwoo to hold things down in his absence. At the same time, Ju Beom-seok, director of Miracle Intensive Academy, reached out to Hyun-sung again, promising it would be the last time if Hyun-sung gave him a moment. More and more academies had been approaching Hyun-sung, all stirred up by Oh Daewon's desperate attempt to raise Cheonil High's prestige. Public praise over Hyun-sung's perfect mock exam score had caught national attention, drawing offers from top academies across Daesan. Beom-seok laid his offer on the table. He wanted to use Hyun-sung's name to boost Miracle Academy's reputation as it expanded to Seoul. Hyun-sung wouldn't even need to attend, just allow the rumor that he was affiliated with them. If he scored perfectly on the SATs, they'd pay him 100 million won in cash. Hyun-sung refused, without explanation. The next day, Lee Miso, the admin of Dichi Area Sky Mom Cafe, approached him. The cafe was a network of academic-minded parents, and they wanted Hyun-sung to tutor their kids once a week in Daesan, 4 sessions a month, 2 million won per student. They were flexible with any condition he had. Hyun-sung looked into the group, understood their influence, and decided to accept. But Kang Min-woo, Lee Miso's son, and the other students didn't take it well. They resented being tutored by someone from Daesan and skipped the first class, instead spending time at a karaoke bar. Meanwhile, Hyun-sung was on a call with Chan-soo, who had successfully met Lim Cheol-hyung, CEO of Future Investments and Securities. Hyun-sung informed him that Lim's eldest would soon enter high school, and the Golden Circle would be Chan-soo's ticket into the top tier. Once inside, Chan-soo would need to share real-time intel and manage client pressure with care, no pushing to the edge. If he slipped up, he'd be finished. Checking the time, Hyun-sung noticed the students hadn't shown. He tracked them to the karaoke bar. Without hesitation, he burst in, punched Kang Min-woo, and coldly reminded everyone that their teacher had arrived, and it was time for greetings. Furious after being hit by Hyun-sung, Kang Min-woo called his mother, only to be scolded. He was even more stunned when she apologized to Hyun-sung and gave him full permission to discipline the students if they acted out. Other parents had agreed too. With authority in hand, Hyun-sung gave the students a choice: tutoring or punishment. Later, Min-woo pulled aside Shin Yumi, asking if she knew anyone in Daesan who could deal with Hyun-sung. She confirmed, and 2 days later met with Jinwoo, a self-proclaimed top dog in Daesan. Together, they headed to Jungdashil Gym, but the moment Jinwoo saw Hyun-sung was the one in question, he turned pale and bolted. Shin Yumi chased him down, but he told her to forget his number and just follow Hyun-sung's lessons. Back in class, Hyun-sung warned the group that if their grades didn't improve, their futures would hold worse consequences. However, if they performed well on finals, he would reduce the class to once a week and convince their parents to drop other tutors. If they followed his lead, he promised to guide them into 4-year universities in Seoul. 2 weeks later, Lee Miso met with Hyun-sung, thrilled by the results. Min-woo had jumped 2 grades in every subject, and the others had improved by at least 1 grade. She wanted him to continue tutoring and offered 10 million won per student per month, with bonuses for major improvements. Hyun-sung accepted, though the money didn't matter much to him. He then asked about Min-woo's father and confirmed a suspicion. Despite their wealth, the Kang family wasn't part of the Golden Circle. Min-woo's father, Kang Dong-chol, held a powerful position as the deputy chief prosecutor of the Seoul Central District Prosecutor's Office. Teacher Young-chol later announced the start of winter vacation to the students and pulled Hyun-sung aside. trying to get on his good side. He claimed Hyun-sung brought him good luck despite their rocky beginning. Hyun-sung humored him for now, knowing that once his plans came to fruition, Young-chul's path would be filled with thorns. After that, Hyun-sung and Siwoo went to the gym and asked their coach for an assessment. The coach explained that Siwoo's striking was top-notch, but his grappling still needed work, good enough for amateur level. Hyun-sung, on the other hand, had sharp judgment and boldness with the skill to handle both striking and grappling, though only against lower-ranked opponents. His potential was high, but he still lacked the physical maturity to challenge pros in their prime. With that in mind, Hyun-sung asked the coach to help both him and Siwoo bulk up over winter break. At 5 a.m., Hyun-sung and Siwoo began their training routine, starting with a run, then moving straight into strength training. Barbell push presses, pull-ups, lunges. They trained 3 times a day and ate 5 meals daily. Days blurred into one another in a brutal cycle. Eventually, Hyun-sung threw up from the intensity. Whether it was the overtraining or force feeding, his body was on the verge of collapse, cold sweat dripping, muscles screaming. But he kept it hidden from the coach, determined to push through. He knew he was improving and couldn't afford to slow down after everything he'd endured for 10 years. Siwoo saw him vomiting and went to the coach to suggest reducing the training, but the coach already understood Hyun-sung wouldn't stop, not even if it broke him. And if the coach refused to help, Hyun-sung would find a riskier way. So the coach decided to stick with him even if it went against his better judgment. By the 5th week, Hyun-sung had transformed. Stronger, faster, sharper. He asked the coach about his current level. The coach noted that while Hyun-sung's muscles had developed rapidly and weren't yet dense, he could now rival a pro fighter. Curious, Hyun-sung pushed further. How did he measure up to the coach himself? The coach smirked and invited him into the ring. They faced off. Hyun-sung's reflexes were sharp, his focus unwavering, but the coach knew he was overconfident. He gradually revealed the gap in their levels. Even after taking solid hits, Hyun-sung remained composed and determined. He landed an uppercut on the coach's jaw. Impressive, but not enough. The coach countered with his own uppercut, knocking Hyun-sung out cold. Later, Hyun-sung woke to Siwoo's voice. Instead of being upset, he laughed. Unlike their first match, where he couldn't even lift a hand, he had landed a real hit this time. He still lost, but now the coach had fought seriously, and with a whole year ahead he could grow even stronger. Soon after, Hyun-sung met Changbyom in an unfinished building. Changbyom, eyeing his physique, handed over a document about the house Hyun-sung had asked for. The location puzzled him, but once Hyun-sung mentioned Senator Kim Pan-ho, he understood. A major industrial park was planned between Sejong and Daesan, with a road cutting through part of the land. The location would soon become prime real estate. Hyun-sung suggested Myungjin Construction should build a villa complex there. In his previous life, that land had exploded in value, sold at auction for 20 times its original price. But there was more. Behind the 1,000 pyong lot was a hidden 20,000 pyong area, landlocked and worthless for now. Once developed, its price could rise from 500,000 to 2 million won per square meter. That meant at least 30 billion won in profit, excluding the added value from the construction project. For Changbyom, it would be a career-defining move as chairman. With training sharpening his skills, Changbyom's funding, and Pan-ho's political clout, Hyun-sung had built a solid foundation. Still, it wasn't enough. His bigger plans required force, people like Chansu and Seong-ho. He needed to gather and refine that team during his second year. The road ahead was long, but he was calm and methodical. Now March had arrived. School was starting again. A group of first-year delinquents were talking about Hyun-sung, saying he was tough enough to handle Shin Youngmin. Among them was Jang Hyuk-jin, a new student at Cheonil High School, known for being bold. He admired Youngmin's strength and doubted that Hyun-sung could fight. While they were smoking, Hyun-sung approached the group. Hyuk-jin wanted to confront him, but the others stopped him after noticing Hyun-sung's name tag. They realized who he was and quickly backed off. Later, Hyun-sung gathered Siwoo, Seong-ho, and a few others on the school rooftop. He told them he had taken control of Cheonil High because he hated thugs like Youngmin. He also revealed his plan to change every school in Daesan within 6 months. Seong-ho was concerned, thinking this could turn their school into a target, but Hyun-sung was aware of the influence of a secret group called the Golden Circle and aimed to remove it from Daesan. He didn't expect blind loyalty from the group but offered a reward, 500,000 won for each school they helped clean up, to be split among them. An extra 100,000 would go to the key person involved in each case. A few days later, Hyuk-jin was seen bullying a classmate to spread fear among others. Hyun-sung entered the classroom to stop him. Teacher Young-chul, who was about to enter, turned away under the excuse of forgetting something. Hyun-sung made an example out of Hyuk-jin, sending a clear message that bullying wouldn't be tolerated. Word began to spread, with students like Jae-jun saying Hyun-sung planned to reform the schools in Daesan with the promise of money. Seong-ho later spoke to Hyun-sung, explaining that this plan would lead to conflict with about a dozen schools. half of them were just pretending to be tough, but the rest were genuinely dangerous. One of the real threats was young Haemin from ICT High School, who had once defeated Youngmin in a match. With help from Changbyom's team, Hyun-sung found out that Haemin was also part of the Golden Circle and had a strange influence over the school, slowly turning Daesun into a place like Gangnam. Hyun-sung believed that where there were criminals, there were always victims, and those victims would give him a reason to act. At Daesun Jail High School, a teacher scolded a student named Daehyun for allegedly stealing 500,000 won. Daehyun said he had lost it, but in truth, he had been pressured by a bully who continued to demand more money. When Daehyun said he couldn't give any more, the bully threatened his mother. Just as the bully was about to beat him, Hyun-sung appeared. He stepped in, stopped the bully and his gang, and introduced himself as Daehyun's friend. Daehyun was alone in his room, his body bruised and nearly breaking from the pain. While in this state, he received a message from a group that dealt with school violence. The message asked for specific details about his bullying, what happened, who the bully was, and a personal statement. In return, the group promised to get revenge on behalf of the victims. Daehyun sent the email, which led to Hyun-sung appearing in his life. Hyun-sung explained that his social media page existed to fight back against the cruelty students faced from bullying. He offered Daehyun a deal. The next day at Jail High School, a third-year student named Hongryul stormed into Daehyun's class. He was angry that his younger brother had been beaten. In response, Daehyun handed him a phone call from Hyun-sung. Over the call, Hyun-sung explained that he was simply helping his friend. He listed everything Hongryul's brother had done to Daehyun over the past 4 years since middle school. He said that if Hongryul cared about his brother, he should have him apologize to Daehyun to end the matter. But Hongryul wasn't ready to give in and demanded to meet Hyun-sung. Calmly, Hyun-sung told him to choose the time and place, revealing his name and school. Later, both groups met. Hongryul declared the meeting as a clash between their two schools, but offered to settle it by having both Daehyun and his brother apologize to each other. This made Hyun-sung realize that Hongryul must have done some background research on him. Still, Hyun-sung refused the offer. Seeing this, Hongryul gave in and told his brother to apologize. The younger boy reluctantly obeyed. Daehyun, however, pointed out that Hyun-sung had given him 2 options. The first was to end things peacefully if the bully promised not to bother him again. This was the safer path. The second was to take revenge. Although Hyun-sung warned that revenge wouldn't fix the broken relationship, Daehyun still chose that path. Following this, Hyun-sung knocked out the bully with a single punch. Enraged, Hongryul's group attacked. Sung-ho fought swiftly, thinking about the prize money, while Si-woo also gave his all, wanting to prove his value for future missions. The rest of Hyun-sung's group joined the fight, driven by the promise of rewards. Despite having more people, Hongryul was shocked by how quickly the situation turned. He decided to take on Hyun-sung himself, thinking it would end the fight. But Hyun-sung took him down with 1 punch. To make sure no one spoke about the incident, Hyun-sung warned that consequences would go beyond suspension or expulsion. When Hongryul still refused to acknowledge him, Hyun-sung pulled out one of his teeth, striking fear into the others. He then commented that Hongryul had taken too long to respond. Back at school, Daehyun accidentally bumped into one of Hongryul's subordinates. The student immediately apologized upon recognizing him, clearly remembering the fear Hyun-sung had instilled in them. This made Daehyun feel like his world had changed, and now it was his turn to keep his promise. He posted a testimonial online about how Hyun-sung had helped resolve bullying cases. Meanwhile, 3 bullies were talking in an alley about what had happened at Daeil High School. As they discussed the situation, Hyun-sung suddenly appeared and confronted them. They tried to attack him. At the same time, Seong-ho messaged Hyun-sung, reporting that he had finished dealing with a group of bullies. Daehyun's social media post had started gaining massive attention, and Si-woo also completed his task. This attention turned into a flood of new emails. Over at Daesun ICT High School, a student was being beaten up by a bully. Another student asked Young Haemin what he planned to do about Hyun-sung, since it was likely that Hyun-sung would eventually target them as well. Haemin then ordered one of his underlings to bring Hongryul. Once Hongryul arrived, he explained everything that had happened to Hyun-sung. After hearing the story, Haemin decided to strike first. He told Hongryul to report Hyun-sung to the teachers, accusing him of violence and assault. However, Hongryul refused. Angered by his disobedience, Haemin began beating him up. Shortly after, teachers confronted Daehyun, claiming they had received a report that he had used a student from Cheonil High to carry out an assault through social media. Daehyun, however, insisted that Hyun-sung was not involved and didn't admit that he was the one behind the original post. Meanwhile, Heyman contacted other delinquent groups, informing them about Hyun-sung's growing influence. He believed Hyun-sung was operating an organized system in every school and had begun probing Jail High, though there had been no response. Heyman was certain that Hyun-sung's real aim was to take over all of Daesan, using the issue of bullying as a cover. Determined to stop him, Heyman revealed he had a plan. A bully was later seen beating a student when Hyun-sung appeared. The victim immediately apologized, revealing that he had been used to lure Hyun-sung into a trap. At that moment, a large group of delinquents led by Heyman emerged from hiding to confront Hyun-sung. There were around 100 of them. Hyun-sung calmly revealed that Jae-jin, the administrator of the social media page, could see who posted and commented on the page. Jae-jin had collaborated with Hyun-sung and took part in setting up this scenario. Hyun-sung was already aware of the ambush. Soon his own group arrived, including former bullies they had already subdued. It became clear that Hyun-sung had anticipated the trap all along and had turned the tables. Rather than falling into the ambush, it was Heyman's group that had walked straight into Hyun-sung's plan. It was revealed that Hyun-sung had previously met with Hongryul and instructed him to gather everyone from his school starting the next day. They were to stay on standby, ready to respond whenever Hyun-sung called. Later, Heyman confronted Hongryul about the decision, but Hongryul pushed back. He made it clear that Heyman had no authority to question him, pointing out that Heyman wasn't the top figure in Daesan. Hongryul also doubted Heyman's ability to defeat Hyun-sung and provoked him by suggesting he fight Hyun-sung one-on-one. Unbeknownst to Heyman, this provocation was part of Hyun-sung's larger strategy. If Heyman accepted, Hyun-sung would publicly overpower him. If he refused, Hyun-sung had an alternate plan ready. When Heyman hesitated, Hyun-sung took the initiative and charged forward, taking down one of Heyman's men. While fighting, he encouraged Heyman to keep thinking while he continued. As Hyun-sung moved swiftly through the crowd, dealing with his opponents, Heyman noticed that Hyun-sung's allies remained passive. This made Heyman question whether Hyun-sung truly planned to face everyone alone. Eventually, Heyman ordered his group to attack. Hyun-sung knew he couldn't defeat 100 fighters by himself, but he needed to establish dominance through fear and strength. He also understood that things in Gangnam would be even more intense, so he had to prepare for the worst scenarios. Seong-ho showed concern, but Si-woo insisted on trusting Hyun-sung. Despite the overwhelming odds, Hyun-sung continued to fight with an unwavering and excited expression. Heyman began to panic, realizing he couldn't win against someone like that, and attempted to escape. Amid the chaos, a blonde-haired opponent stepped forward to challenge Hyun-sung, but was quickly taken down. Hyun-sung beat him relentlessly until the opponent surrendered, realizing Hyun-sung's determination to fight through everyone. Seong-ho and Si-woo felt relieved and encouraged the others to back off. Hyun-sung then declared that from that point on, all schools in Daesan would follow the orders of Cheonil High and not dare to defy him. 2 weeks later, at ICT High School, Heyman sat in class while overhearing students gossip about how he had fled during the fight against Cheonil High. As he grew irritated by the whispers, Hyun-sung entered the classroom and asked him about Moon Byung-seon, who had sent an email. It was revealed that Moon Byung-seon, the student Hyun-sung had just mentioned, was the target Heyman had been hired by the Golden Circle to eliminate. Realizing the implications, Heyman launched himself at Hyun-sung in a fit of rage, only to be effortlessly knocked out with a single punch. When Heyman regained consciousness, he found himself in the school infirmary, with the principal standing beside him. Heyman tried to blame Hyun-sung, but the principal cut him off coldly. According to every witness, it was Heyman who had started the fight. With his reputation as a known troublemaker, no one believed his story. Heyman threatened to expose what really happened, but the principal's glare silenced him. He asked Heyman if he knew Moon Byung-seon, a question that left Heyman confused. Unbeknownst to him, while he was unconscious, Hyun-sung had made a secret deal with Nam Yeon-seok, completely hidden from the Golden Circle. Oh Daewon had covered for Hyun-sung, and the groundwork had already been laid to plunge Heyman into ruin. The principal issued a final warning. If Heyman didn't want his life completely destroyed, he should shut his mouth and leave quietly. Heyman was expelled from school. Back home, his father, furious after also losing his manual labor job, blamed Heyman for everything. Heyman couldn't understand how his life had unraveled so fast, but deep down, he knew. It was Hyun-sung. It had always been Hyun-sung. Then he received a chilling call from Moon Byung-seon himself. Byung-seon told Heyman that Hyun-sung wasn't just targeting him. He planned to ruin both Heyman and the client who hired him. His dream of becoming a fitness trainer, it was over. Just then, Si-woo and Seong-ho appeared, approaching Heyman with silent intent. Meanwhile, at Daesan Science High School, 2 students were chatting when one of them bumped into another student, Hyun-jin. The boy lashed out, angry, and ended up hitting Hyun-jin. But this wasn't just a random incident. Last winter, Hyun-sung had asked his younger brother Hyun-jin which high school he wanted to attend. Hyunjin replied that he wanted to follow in Hyunsung's footsteps and attend the same school and university. But Hyunsung disagreed. Even though he had the power to protect his brother, he believed Hyunjin needed his own path, free from the chaos that followed him. So, he encouraged Hyunjin to enroll at Decent Science High instead. After the fight, Hyunjin and the bully were called to the homeroom teacher's office. The teacher, Lee Hakbyom, demanded both bring their guardians the next day. The bully tried to intimidate Hyunjin, bragging about his father's construction business and his older brother being the top dog at Decent Future High. The next day, the bully's father arrived, loud and arrogant, until he entered the counseling room and saw Hyunsung waiting there as Hyunjin's guardian. Instantly, the bravado disappeared. The man bowed, apologized repeatedly, and told his son to do the same. Even the bully's older brother beat him for not cooperating. The family agreed to the teacher's decision for formal disciplinary action against the bully, Byung-soo. Later, Lee Hakbyom privately spoke to Hyunsung. Though he admitted he didn't particularly like him, he recognized the influence Hyunsung had in Daesan, and if that meant a good student like Hyunjin could study without fear, he was willing to call Hyunsung anytime. Hyunsung bowed deeply. In his previous life, Lee Hakbyom had been fired for protecting a student targeted by the Golden Circle. Even then, he had never compromised. He had fought for his students until the end. To Hyunsung, Hakbyom was a true educator, and the very reason he chose this school for Hyunjin. Hyunsung asked only one thing. If Hyunjin ever made a mistake, then Lee Hakbyom should punish him as severely as he would any other student. He thanked the teacher sincerely. Byung-soo's father and brother scolded him for messing with Hyunsung, who was backed by Myungjin Construction and had influence over every high school in Daesan. Hyunsung then ordered them to follow him, and Byung-soo ended up apologizing on his knees. Hyunsung remarked that a phone call from him was enough to handle the situation, so everyone bowed and apologized. When Hyunsung saw Hyunjin after Byung-soo had beaten him up, it triggered his suppressed trauma. He wanted to confront Byung-soo himself, but restrained himself for the sake of his brother. He told Byung-soo to apologize to Hyunjin, who accepted the apology kindly. Hyunsung transferred Hyunjin to the school to protect his innocent nature. From that day, Hyunjin's world changed as everyone, including seniors, acted nicely toward him out of fear of Hyunsung. Hyunjin didn't realize how influential his brother was. This moment marked when Daesan truly came under Hyunsung's control. People wondered what Hyunsung's next move would be, but he remained quiet. Soon, June arrived and the weather became warmer. At the executive director's office, Changbyum and his team received news that the Sejong City reconstruction project turned out to be a jackpot. A few months earlier, during an executive meeting at Myungjin Construction, many personnel disagreed with Changbyum's decision to invest in such a low-profile project. Chang-seok tried to make a big fuss, but Changbyum calmly silenced him using his position. Their father asked Changbyum if he could handle the consequences of his decision, and Changbyum assured him he wouldn't disappoint. Back in the present, it was revealed that the profit from purchasing the land alone was around 30 billion won, and once the industrial park was built, the property value would increase even more. The chairman rewarded Changbyum by announcing him as the next chairman of Myungjin Construction. Chang-seok tried to speak up, but the chairman explained that the decision was not based on results, but on Chang-seok's opposition, which showed he cared more about personal success than the company's benefits. The chairman said Changbyum, who cared deeply about the company, was the right choice. He told Chang-seok to leave the company and live his life, promising to recognize his past dedication and reward him accordingly. Chang-seok refused to back down and secretly contacted a news reporter to arrange a lunch meeting. Changbom and Hyunsung were seen at a cafe, where Changbom reminisced about their first meeting at the same place. He believed Hyunsung's plan would work because of his determination to do whatever it took. Thanks to Hyunsung, Changbom was promised the position of next chairman and assured he would keep his promise. However, he soon received a call from director Kim Cheoljin about an upcoming article revealing Changbom's birth as an illegitimate son who now wanted to become the company's heir. Chang-seok learned about their father's affair and was shocked to discover the woman had given birth to a child decades ago. Changbom was very stressed by the news and wanted to leave immediately to confront Chang-seok, believing the scandal was his doing. However, Hyunsung advised him against taking rash actions, warning that such moves could cause him to lose everything. Hyunsung also pointed out that Changbom was aware that Chang-seok was actually the illegitimate child. In Hyunsung's past life, Changbom had attacked Chang-seok, which disappointed their father deeply and led him to hire a specialist operations manager, marking the beginning of the illegitimate child scandal. Although the succession race once seemed to favor Chang-seok, he still chose to reveal the scandal. Despite Chang-seok's potential as a chairman, the current chairman supported Changbom, and the company kept the scandal about the illegitimate child quiet. After investigating the situation, Hyunsung deduced that Chang-seok could be the illegitimate child. Hyunsung asked Changbom why he didn't expose the scandal himself. Changbom explained that during his youth, The chairman was a poor father who drank, cheated, and abused his mother. One day, after a fight between his parents, Chung Beom comforted his mother, who revealed that Chung Sok wasn't really his brother and that she didn't even know who the real mother was. She had endured it because they were family no matter what. Hyun Sung then suggested a way to resolve everything without anyone getting hurt. The next day, Chung Beom faced the press and apologized for the release of the disappointing news. He revealed that he was not the illegitimate child, providing DNA proof, and admitted there had been an illegitimate child who unfortunately died from a miscarriage. This explained why their father had been sending money as alimony. Chung Sok, watching from his office, was shocked. Chung Beom also warned that anyone who harassed his family with malicious intent would face a fierce response from him as the next chairman and eldest son. Later, the chairman met with his two sons and thanked Chung Beom for handling the situation wisely, thinking of family rather than competition. He assured Chung Beom that the paperwork for his position was in progress and asked him to excuse them briefly. Turning to Chung Sok, the chairman said he understood that Chung Sok's actions were motivated by a desire to become chairman and that he wouldn't blame him. Despite being the illegitimate child, Chung Sok had dug his own grave. The chairman offered him some buildings so he wouldn't have to worry about money and told him to step back quietly, promising not to hold him accountable. Chung Sok begged for one last chance, but the chairman snapped that Chung Beom had kept the secret because he considered Chung Sok family, not a competitor. Chairman Go could have simply given Chung Beom the chairman position, but chose to let Chung Sok join the succession race, showing that the family truly regarded Chung Sok as family. This made Chung Sok realize that he was actually the privileged one. At Incheon Airport, Chung Beom saw Chung Sok off. Chung Sok handed him a flash drive containing materials to run the company. Chung Beom eventually figured out that Hyun Sung had helped him behind the scenes. Chung Sok acknowledged his brother's skill in using people better than himself. Chung Beom warned Chung Sok not to harm Hyun Sung, or he would not let it slide. Soon after, Hyun Sung called Chung Sok to warn him not to seek power. Chung Sok remarked on how much Hyun Sung and Chung Beom cared for and were loyal to each other, expressing genuine respect for his brother and thanking Hyun Sung. Hyun Sung felt relieved that he had finally solved one puzzle. Only a few months remained before he would carry out his plan to take down the Golden Circle, but before that, he had something else to do. Meanwhile, Minho was shown in the dark of his room, looking beaten up and trying to call Hyun Sung, who did not answer. Chung Beom visited Oh Dae-won to inform him that Hyun Sung was going to be transferred to Seoul the following year. Oh Dae-won felt a sense of concern upon hearing this news, worried about the changes it might bring. However, Chung Beom reassured him by explaining that he would continue to support Cheonil High School, aiming to help it grow into a reputable institution despite Hyun Sung's departure. This assurance eased Oh Dae-won's worries, and he agreed with Chung Beom's plans. Meanwhile, Minho persistently sent apology messages to Hyun Sung, who eventually agreed to meet with him. After escaping Daesan, Minho dreamed of starting fresh in a new city and attending a new school, hoping to live a normal high school life. He believed that by buying snacks for his classmates and helping others when they needed it, he could blend in and be accepted. Unfortunately, these hopes were quickly shattered when a student named Park Mingu singled him out and began bullying him. Although Minho tried to defend himself, he was easily overpowered and beaten. Following that incident, Minho's school life took a drastic turn for the worse. He became isolated and lonely, facing a harsh reality that even his wealthy parents could not fix this time. As he struggled to understand why Mingu focused his torment on him, Minho eventually realized that it was orchestrated by Hyun Sung. It turned out that Hyun Sung had contacted Chansu to hire Mingu, who was actually a hitman working for the Golden Circle, specifically to target Minho. Minho considered running away from the torment, but he felt trapped, knowing he would always remain within Hyun Sung's reach. Resigned to his fate, he tried to endure the bullying, hoping that things might eventually improve. However, his hope was crushed when Mingu cruelly tricked him into drinking a packet of milk, embarrassing Minho in front of others, which was the breaking point for him. Despite reporting the incidents to teachers, no real action was taken since Mingu dismissed his behavior as mere pranks, all the while continuing to physically assault Minho. On top of this, Minho's past was revealed. He had been expelled from a previous school in Daesan for bullying other students, a secret that destroyed his last shred of hope. Overwhelmed by despair, Minho chose to drop out of school altogether. Even then, the harassment followed him home, with Mingu showing up to threaten and assault him regularly. Mingu claimed that Hyun Sung had ordered him to beat Minho nearly to death once a month, intending to ingrain in him a constant reminder that his suffering was far from over. Back in the present, Minho was found kneeling on the ground, desperately pleading for Hyun Sung's mercy and promising to do anything to make amends. Hyun-sung, however, offered him only one last chance to take down Mingu himself. Minho questioned how he could possibly accomplish such a task, given his lack of power and money. Hyun-sung told him that he still had his own body, and that was enough. He explained that Minho only needed to create enough trouble to force the police to intervene. If Minho truly wanted to be free from this torment, he had to prove that he was willing to fight and that he had what it took to change his fate. Mingu sat at school, reflecting on the absence of his plaything, Minho. He felt a twisted sense of satisfaction and excitement, knowing that he had earned a substantial amount of money simply by bullying Minho. With this unexpected windfall, Mingu began to consider treating himself to a luxurious vacation, indulging in the rewards of his cruel work. Suddenly, a police officer arrived to arrest Mingu, presenting evidence that Minho had jumped off a building the previous night and was now in a coma. Minho had left a will that explicitly named Mingu as responsible for his attempted suicide. There were numerous witnesses who had seen Mingu bullying Minho, along with CCTV footage showing Mingu breaking into Minho's house. Faced with this overwhelming evidence, Mingu realized that his situation was dire. He quickly confessed that he had been hired by the Golden Circle to torment Minho, hoping for leniency. However, the police officer abruptly silenced him, stopping the recording and turning the CCTV feed away. The officer revealed that Mingu had been paid not only to bully Minho, but also to take full blame if anything went wrong. The officer warned Mingu that members of the Golden Circle were everywhere, including within the police force itself, and advised him to remain silent if he wanted to stay alive. At Gyeonggi-do General Hospital A, groups of patients in the waiting room watched the news coverage about Minho's suicide attempt and the legal proceedings against Mingu. Hyun-sung was present there, quietly observing the situation. He reflected on how Mingu had ultimately taken the fall and realized that if he had acted recklessly, he might have suffered a similar fate. This strengthened his resolve to be cautious and seize every opportunity in his plan to dismantle the Golden Circle. Hyun-sung then entered the room where Minho was admitted. Minho's mother confronted him at first, but chose to cooperate, fearing that opposing Hyun-sung might result in worse consequences. After she left, Hyun-sung looked down at Minho's unconscious form and silently prayed for his survival. Despite this, Hyun-sung admitted to himself that he had no real intention of honoring any promises made to Minho. He believed that Minho should remain unconscious because if he woke, he would be forced to face Hyun-sung once again, and with it, the harsh reality that Hyun-sung controlled. As a tear slipped down Minho's pale, unresponsive face, Hyun-sung's expression hardened. Later, Hyun-sung was seen in a market store buying food. As he moved through the aisles, his thoughts turned inward. He acknowledged that his path was driven less by justice and more by a thirst for revenge. Yet, he knew he could not be consumed entirely by vengeance. He had to ensure the well-being and happiness of the people he cared about. Just as he prepared to leave the store, he noticed Oh Hyeji spotting him from a distance before quickly running away. Shortly afterward, Changbeom called Hyun-sung to inform him that Hyeji's father had orchestrated a deceitful scheme involving a doctor who was supposed to cut her Achilles tendon. Changbeom asked Hyun-sung what he wanted him to do, whether to eliminate the doctor and Hyeji, but Hyun-sung instructed him to leave them alone. Hyun-sung explained that Hyeji had recently bought snacks at the store, even though she could have obtained them elsewhere. Because she had acted like a patient for months, she must have felt suffocated and sought fresh air, which was why she wore a hoodie, to conceal her ability to walk. She could move on her own feet, but only in secret, afraid to be seen or to encounter Hyun-sung. In essence, she was living in a personal hell much like Minho's. Hyun-sung felt that it was only fair to give them the same despair they had inflicted on him, a cruel reflection of their own suffering. As time swiftly passed, the end of the sophomore year approached, marking a transition period that felt calm and uneventful for most students. Yet for Hyun-sung, tranquility was elusive. His days were consumed by relentless training, a routine that tested his limits physically and mentally. On one particular day at the gym, Hyun-sung engaged in an intense sparring session alongside Siwoo, pushing their endurance to the fullest. The session stretched through 5 rigorous rounds, each lasting 5 minutes, demanding sustained focus, strength, and stamina. When the final round ended and the timer signaled the conclusion, Siwoo collapsed to his knees, his body betraying the exhaustion he felt after the punishing workout. Despite the grueling effort, Siwoo was struck with surprise and admiration, noticing that Hyun-sung appeared barely affected by the ordeal, his energy seemingly intact and unwavering. Hyun-sung, confident in his resilience and preparation, maintained that the challenge was well within his capacity, demonstrating his commitment and exceptional physical condition. Following this exhausting session, their coach approached Hyun-sung with important news. He instructed Hyun-sung Hyun-sung to keep his upcoming weekend entirely free, explaining that they would be traveling to Seoul. The purpose of this trip was significant. It was time to evaluate the tangible outcomes of all the intense training Hyun-sung had undergone. This visit would be a crucial milestone, offering a real measure of his progress and readiness. Rewinding a few days back to Seoul, a pivotal meeting took place at the gym of Lee Do-hak. The coach had convened with Lee, who was once a junior under the guidance of Young Do-keol. Lee had revered Do-keol, idolizing him almost as a godlike figure. However, the landscape changed dramatically after Do-keol's public downfall, which was tied to a drug scandal that shattered his reputation and influence. In the aftermath, Lee Do-hak emerged as a dominant figure in the UFL, gaining immense popularity and respect. Despite his rise, the darker side of Lee remained hidden from public view. He too had a history with drug use, a secret that was carefully guarded from the limelight. During the conversation between the two trainers, Do-keol proposed that their respective students be allowed to spar against each other. He reassured Lee Do-hak that he had no intentions of making a professional comeback himself. His sole purpose was to evaluate the improvements his students had made under his guidance. Lee, perceiving the proposal as an opportunity not just to assess skills, but also to assert dominance, accepted the offer with a strategic mindset. He saw the sparring as a chance to publicly humiliate Do-keol, thereby promoting his own gym's reputation and attracting attention in the competitive martial arts scene. With this agreement finalized, Do-keol prepared to bring both Hyun-sung and Si-woo to Seoul.